Chapter 304, Purple Mansion Nurturing Divine Technique, Birth of Divine Sense. Reading Omicron Novel Cool. Omicronim. Lu Changxing immediately discovered that the eye on his forehead could see the surroundings. Or rather, this vision was not seen through the eyes, but perceived through the third eye on the forehead and then transferred to the brain. It was even clearer and more direct than what he saw with his own eyes. And he could watch in all directions at the same time, a full 360 degrees without any dead angles. At this moment, Lu Changxing saw a figure sitting cross-legged, eyes slightly closed, face like jade, a handsome and spirited beautiful man. Hiss, is there really such a transcendently handsome man in the world? Lu Changxing exclaimed, oh, it turns out to be myself, then it's fine. After glancing at his own handsome appearance twice, Lu Changxing retracted his gaze and slowly opened his eyes. He also realized that this third eye must be what cultivators call divine sense. He hadn't expected a single jade soul flower to directly bring forth his divine sense. Isn't this a bit too simple? Could it be that because I have lived 2 lives I am different from ordinary people in terms of spirit, so a jade soul flower directly birthed my divine sense? Lu Changxing speculated in his heart. Without giving it much thought, he shared with Xianxia the phenomenon of his newly generated divine sense. He asked if this was the birth of divine sense. I knew that Lu Changxing could generate divine sense. Upon hearing this, Xianxia wasn't too surprised. In her eyes, Lu Changxing was now a genius. Even though his spiritual root was only 9th grade, he had other opportunities and might even possess some kind of spiritual body. Now, at the 9th level energy refinement of cultivation level, taking the jade soul flower and producing divine sense was also normal. Changxing, how far can your divine sense reach? Xianxia inquired. About 10 feet or so. Lu Changxing closed his eyes again to sense and then spoke. Only 10 feet, that's already enough. A newly foundation-established cultivator usually has divine sense coverage of about 30 feet. Changxing, you don't need the aid of the heavenly heart lotus anymore when you attempt foundation establishment. Xianxia said with a tender look in her eyes. This is all thanks to your guidance and help, Xiyu. Lu Changxing also showed a hint of delight. He wasn't concerned about his divine sense being only 10 feet. After all, he hadn't truly reached foundation establishment. Being able to generate divine sense without foundation establishment was already quite good. Xiyu, how is your cultivation going now? At this time, Lu Changxing also showed concern for Xiaoxia's cultivation. Originally, he was supposed to help Xiaoxia with her cultivation. However, for so long, it had been Xiaoxia helping him with his cultivation. Lu Changxing felt somewhat embarrassed. I need Lu Lang's help. Upon hearing Lu Changxing's concern, Xiaoxia's eyelashes trembled lightly. Lu Changxing immediately embraced the beauty and pressed his lips to hers. Suddenly, their breaths flowed steadily like the tide, back and forth. Lu Changxing knew that merely doing this would not have any effect on Xiaoxia's cultivation. Later, to repay the fairy for her help in cultivation, he humbled himself, willing to work hard for reciprocity. Time passed unknowingly, and after a while, Lu Changxing and the fairy ended their cultivation, holding Xiaoxia's fairy-like body tightly. The fairy's ebony hair was slightly disheveled, with strands sticking to her beautiful and bright cheeks. Her cool and beautiful eyes twinkled, brimming with allure and charm as they opened and closed. Xiyu, it seems your cultivation still has a long way to go. Lu Changxing, like a dog devouring the moon, nibbled on her tender snow-white flesh, his words muffled and soft. After tasting something salty, naturally one craves a bit of sweetness to freshen the palate. Xiaoxia frowned delicately, lightly wrapping her arms around Lu Changxing's shoulders, not wanting to move even a finger. The supreme forgetful love technique quickly circulated, calmly suppressing the surging desires. Feeling the stir of Lu Changxing's noble instrument, she pursed her lips and leaned in closer with her head. Lu Changxing was taken aback for a moment. He wanted to say there was no need for such measures. But the words reached his lips and were swallowed back down. Lu Changxing's brows furrowed and relaxed unknowingly. He remembered how the fairy was once high above, like the 9 heavens' bright moon, unattainable, commanding reverence that forbade any irreverent thoughts. Yet now she had descended to the mortal world, exposed to the elements. After a long while, Xiaoxia's fair face flushed red, her black hair cascading down around her temples, concealing her cold and stunning cheeks, her pretty brows slightly knitted. Xiyu, you don't have to force yourself if this is too much for you, Lu Changxing said, embracing the beauty in his arms. I'm just cultivating, it's not a bother. Xianxia replied softly, her swan-like neck undulating, her voice trembling slightly. Although she didn't quite understand the matters between men and women, she wasn't entirely naive. She knew that all this time, Lu Changxing had been restraining himself. Thus, she was also willing to take this step forward on her own. Seeing this, Lu Changxing sighed softly in his heart. He couldn't help but think of the past with Lu Miaoge. After he had spent his life forced to save Lu Miaoge, their relationship had taken a step further. Back then Lu Miaoge was utterly obedient to him. Yet she was unwilling to marry him. Now Xiaoxia's behavior gave him the same feeling. It felt as if she was also considering ending their relationship after the cultivation was complete, severing their karmic ties. Lu Changxing didn't ponder over it for too long. He knew these things couldn't be rushed. After all, with the relationship having progressed this far, he was certainly going to marry her. He continued to cultivate with Xiaoxia for several more days. Lu Changxing also remembered that since he and Xiaoxia had arrived at the cave dwelling, they had been cultivating the whole time. It had been almost a month already. All this time he hadn't even spoken to Lu Miaoge. And usually, his daughter Lu Qingzhu lived on Qingzhu Mountain. Only when he came to Red Leaf Valley Market would he bring the child to keep Lu Miaoge company. During this time, Lu Miaoge had to look after both the shop and the child, leaving her no time to cultivate. Soon after, Lu Changxing told Xiaoxia that he must return home and that he would come back later to accompany her in cultivation. All right, Xiaoxia, having completed her cultivation and regained her composure, nodded gently. Seeing her calm demeanor, it was only at times like these that Lu Changxing felt he might be too affectionate. The favors of a beautiful woman are the hardest to repay. Lu Changxing sighed softly as he left the cave dwelling and quickly headed back to the Lu family's spiritual talisman shop. After Lu Changxing left, Xiaoxia's countenance and expression turned cold and detached. Her eyes, like the bright moon in the heavens, carried a faint celestial aura, indifferent and tranquil. Sister Miaoge. Lu Changxing arrived on the third floor of the spiritual talisman shop and saw Lu Miaoge lulling her daughter to sleep. A sense of guilt immediately surged in his heart. Changxing, you're back. Lu Miaoge looked at Lu Changxing, her face revealing a tender and warm smile, her aura gentle as water. Ever since becoming a mother, her once ethereal spirit had softened to a gentle and dignified grace. Sister Miaoge, I was delayed due to my cultivation. Lu Changxing guessed that Lu Miaoge already knew about him and Xiaoxia renting the cave dwelling. He did not conceal anything, explaining what he had been doing these days with Xiaoxia. One reason was he still had quite some time left to cultivate with Xiaoxia. Additionally, Xiaoxia would also be considered the future mother of his child. And Lu Miaoge was privy to many of his secrets. Therefore there was no need to completely hide such matters. P.S. I've been dragging my feet writing in the evenings recently, feeling muddled. While organizing the text today, I found two minor issues and have applied fixes. 1. In chapter 132, I forgot to mention the system's lottery when the protagonist's spiritual root progeny reached 25. Therefore, I simply added a sentence about winning a second-rank skill, Spirit Slaughterer in the lottery. 2. In chapter 139, when the protagonist's 100 refinements treasure body art broke through to the third level, the magical treasure embryo obtained from the Red Rogue youth was refined and concentrated into his right hand. These two patches are just a few hundred words and don't affect other plotlines at all. Chapter 305. The first offspring completes the introduction of Qi into the body. _1. Reading Omicron in Novel Cool. Omicronim, lease, in this world there actually exists such a cultivation technique, this way of cultivation. Upon hearing about Xiaoxia's affairs from Lu Changxing, the cultivation of the fairy, Lu Miaoge was somewhat surprised and amazed. She did not doubt Lu Changxing's words. After all, there was no need for Lu Changxing to deceive her. Moreover, in this vast world nothing is too strange. She had also seen in ancient texts that many profound cultivation techniques were very demanding and could even have side effects. It was just surprising to have a practitioner of such a technique appear right beside her. Yes, I was also very astonished when I first heard about it. This technique was also mentioned in ancient texts. Lu Changxing smiled and said. He did not say too much about the cultivation technique. After all, this matter could be considered Xiaoxia's privacy, her secret. It's also because you are charming that Fairy Xiao would choose you as her cultivation partner, Lu Miaoge said gently with a graceful look on her face. Although she felt somewhat jealous about this matter, she did not mind too much. After all, Lu Changxing was known for being inconstant in love. Having married the two sisters and having not taken any more wives or concubines in the past 3 years, focusing instead on serious cultivation, had already made her very content. Besides, this matter was advantageous for Lu Changxing and could be considered an opportunity. But Changxing, after cultivating for so long, don't you have any thoughts about Fairy Xiao? Lu Miaoge looked at her husband with a smile that was not quite a smile. Ahem, if I say I don't have any thoughts at all, Sister Miaoge, you definitely won't believe me. But between her and me, it's only about cultivation after all. Moreover, our statuses are worlds apart. In the end, I'm afraid it's a relationship with no fate, and it cannot be forced. Lu Changxing coughed softly and then shook his head with a sigh. Although in his heart, Xianxia was already the mother of his child. But such things were not necessary to discuss at the moment, nor did it fit his persona. Storms begin with a small ripple, waves form from gentle disturbances. In my heart, husband has great aspirations, and you will surely soar to great heights in the future, achieving success on the path of immortality. How can you belittle yourself? Lu Miaoge looked at Lu Changxing, her voice was soft and sincere as she spoke. Having spent so many years with Lu Changxing as his wife, she could naturally tell that her husband was not truly devoid of ambition, but rather held great aspirations in his heart. She did not like to see Lu Changxing looking down on himself, belittling himself. Sister Miaoge. Lu Changxing was slightly startled. He did not expect that just by putting on a sighing face, his wife would comfort him like this. This warmed his heart and he felt very at ease. He then stepped forward and gently embraced his wife, preparing to assist her with cultivation. Little Zhu just fell asleep. Lu Miaoge, knowing what Lu Changxing was about to do, her cheeks tinged with red, whispered softly. It's all right, with the peaceful spirit talisman and the silencing talisman, she won't wake up, Lu Changxing said. Then he gently picked up his daughter, Lu Qingzhu, and placed her in the bedroom. He placed a peaceful spirit talisman on her to calm her mental spirit and ensure deep sleep. With a silencing talisman, he enveloped her in silence to block out any noise and prevent her from being disturbed. In the following time, Lu Changxing spent most of his days in the Red Leaf Valley market. He went back to Qingzhu Mountain only once every month or two. Half a year passed in the blink of an eye. Because he spent most of this half year in the Red Leaf Valley market with the fairy, Xianxia, and dual cultivation with Lu Miaoge, his progress in having children was slightly delayed. Only 3 more children were added. However, his cultivation level had reached the perfection of qi refinement after half a year's cultivation and was polished to perfection. He was ready to attempt foundation establishment. Changxing, in the next period of time, accompany me to travel around, and let's observe this bustling world, Xianxia said to Lu Changxing with a pulled-in lip after knowing he had reached the perfection of qi refinement, his cultivation level smooth and perfect, and that he was ready for foundation establishment. In this half a year she barely stepped out of her cave dwelling. When Lu Changxing was there she would cultivate with him. If Lu Changxing was not around she would cultivate alone. All right. Lu Changxing looked at Xianxia, who showed a hopeful smile, and he realized something in his heart and nodded. During this half year he and Xianxia had become incredibly close, having cultivated together in every way possible except for the final step. And in this process, Xianxia not only became increasingly proactive but her entire demeanor became lively and charming, as if she had shed all pretense, washing away the natural coolness and pride of her being. Returning to the Xianxia from over a decade ago in his memory, making Lu Changxing puzzled about what was currently happening with Xianxia. How her cultivation was going. Xiyu, how's your cultivation coming along? Lu Changxing asked aloud. He guessed that Xiaoxia's cultivation must be nearly complete. Otherwise, she would not suggest at this time that he accompany her out. It's almost done. Xiaoxia pressed her lips together and did not hide anything. Hearing this, Lu Changxing internally said it was as expected. His feelings were somewhat complicated at the moment. If Xiaoxia's cultivation was coming to an end, and she was ready to overcome her emotional tribulations, it meant that his current relationship with her was also nearing its end. Congratulations, Xiyu. When do you plan to set out? Lu Changxing let out a breath, not becoming overly sentimental. A warm smile appeared on his face. In his view, this was not some sort of eternal separation. Even if there was a parting, it was merely to make the eventual reunion all the more joyous. Whatever you arrange. Xiaoxia saw the smile on Lu Changxing's face and also revealed a radiant smile, very enchanting. In that case, let's set off directly. Lu Changxing immediately said. He then walked out of the cave dwelling with Xiaoxia. He told Lu Miaoge that he would be away for a while, and handed her a stack of first-grade supreme talismans. Chapter 306. The first offspring completes the introduction of qi into the body. Reading Omicronin novel cool. Omicronim, Lisa's wife helped look after the peace talisman hall. Upon hearing this, Lu Miaoge didn't ask any further questions. She simply asked Lu Changxing to be more careful and vigilant. Afterward, Lu Changxing and Xianxia disguised themselves, concealing their true appearance, and left Red Leaf Valley Market. Upon leaving the marketplace, the two roamed aimlessly. They slept in the wilderness, stargazed, admired the moon, listened to the rain, tasted tea, and practiced cultivation. In this manner, roaming without purpose and taking in the sights, they arrived at a worldly city. Disguised, the two, though still exuding an uncommon aura, did not shine too brightly or attract undue attention. Changxing, I want to eat candied hawthorn on a stick. Changxing, I want to eat mung bean cake. Changxing, do you think those two sugar figurines look like us? Walking through the bustling city, Xiaoxia was like a lively and radiant young girl. Gone was her previous aloof and serene fairy-like demeanor. She held Lu Changxing's hand, moving through the streets with delight etched across her face. Now looking here, now there. Whenever she saw something tasty or fun, she would grab Lu Changxing's hand, a look of coquettish entreaty and hopeful expectancy on her face. Just like an ordinary young girl from the secular world. This must be Shiyu's true nature, Lu Changxing thought to himself as he watched her. He mused that cultivation, especially practicing the supreme forgetful love technique, really had a significant impact on a person. Alright, well bye. Lu Changxing amiably responded to Xiaoxia's request. There was not a trace of impatience on his face. He bought her anything she wanted. If Xiaoxia couldn't carry an item, he helped her carry it. If she took a few bites and left the rest, he took it to try. If it tasted good, he had some. If not, it was discarded. The two of them, just like a loving couple from the secular world, enjoyed themselves in the city. Last time, I spoke of how I used my life as an invitation card to respectfully welcome the young master into the martial arts world. The two wandered leisurely to a footbridge. Xiaoxia, upon seeing someone storytelling, immediately took an interest and pulled Lu Changxing over to listen. Under the bridge, an old man in a robe was speaking animatedly. This prince of the Northern Territory, guarded by Sword Divine, stepped out of the Northern Territory and into the martial arts world, thinking that the sky was high and the birds could fly freely. Yet, this world of martial arts was not as splendid and colorful as it seemed to this young prince, but was fraught with dangers because the moment he entered the martial arts world. Today, this old man will leave the story here. If you want to know what happens next, come again tomorrow, said the robed old man before bowing out half an hour later. A young girl around the age of 12 came forward, carrying a copper basin, clearly expecting money. However, only a few well-dressed people scattered around tossed some copper coins into the basin, leaving the young girl looking disappointed. Xiaoxia, seeing this, gently tugged at Lu Changxing's sleeve. Good performance deserves a reward. Lu Changxing smiled, instantly turned a silver ingot into fragments. He then dropped a few silver fragments into the copper basin. The sound of the fragments hitting the basin drew attention from onlookers. No one expected such generosity. The little girl was stunned. She and her grandfather had never received such a substantial reward while storytelling at the footbridge. Arya, have you not thanked your benefactor yet? The storytelling elder saw this and quickly stepped forward, pulling the little girl to bow deeply, saying, "Thank you, young master, thank you, benefactor." No need for that. Lu Changxing gently waved off and taking Xiaoxia's hand, turned to leave. Changxing, what that old gentleman was saying was quite interesting. I wonder what will happen to that young master afterward, Xiaoxia said with a giggle, excitedly discussing the story's potential developments with Lu Changxing. As she spoke, she spotted a fortune-telling stall nearby and, once again intrigued, pulled Lu Changxing to have their fortunes told. But such fortune-telling would naturally not reveal any hidden great master from the dust of the world. Seeing Lu Changxing and Xiaoxia as if they were a husband and wife, the fortune-teller offered a bunch of auspicious words. Xiaoxia, listening to these words, was also quite happy. So, the two of them spent more than half a month playing around the worldly city. That night, accompanied by soft mournful sobs, Lu Changxing and Xiaoxia completed their cultivation. Changxing, I'm ready for foundation establishment, Xiaoxia said, draped over Lu Changxing's body like mud in a quiet voice. Lu Changxing was slightly taken aback. He had long anticipated this day. He asked, When are you planning to undergo foundation establishment? He knew that when Xianxia spoke those words, it meant she had made up her mind and had overcome the tribulation of emotions. 3 months later, on the night of the full moon, she replied. Then we will undergo foundation establishment together. Xianxia lifted her head slightly, her beautiful eyes gazing at Lu Changxing, her face suffused with a blush, and she was stunningly beautiful. Okay, Lu Changxing nodded and didn't say anything more. He knew too much talking was pointless. He also didn't want to say too much and affect Xiaoxia's mood or her foundation establishment. After all, in this world, cultivation is the paramount path. Given the current situation of their identities, there was no way he could bring this beauty home to raise children. So, once his own strength was about right, it would be all the same to bring her home as his bride. As for the supreme forgetful love technique, in Lu Changxing's view, if he could melt her heart once, he could do it a second time. Don't you have anything you want to say to me? Asked Xiaoxia regarding Lu Changxing's prompt agreement. She pursed her lips. Overcoming the emotional tribulation is a good thing. Moreover, I will respect your choice, Lu Changxing said softly. Man is not vegetation, who can be without passion. Having spent a year with Xiaoxia, who was as cold as the moon yet lively and alluring, he was very fond of her. In these circumstances he certainly wouldn't let her go. Chapter 307. The first offspring completes the introduction of qi into the body. Moreover, he was still owed a favor by the other party. Reading Omicron novel cool. Omicron least thank you Changxing. Xiaoxia pursed her lips as she spoke. She too felt somewhat apprehensive in her heart, worrying that Lu Changxing would ask her to stay. Fearful that under Lu Changxing's persuasion, she would find it hard to cut through her emotional ties, to ascending beyond all affections. In this year of cultivation she had realized that she had less of the stubborn obsession for breakthroughs. She had begun to grow more sentimental, prone to daydreaming. In Lu Changxing's presence she would feel joy, worry, sadness, grief and affection. This had helped her thoroughly comprehend her emotional tribulation, to understand the concept of transcending all emotions. What she needed to do now was to unsheath her sword and sever her ties, to seek the path to the ultimate truth beyond the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Shiyu, where do you plan to go for your foundation establishment? Lu Changxing asked aloud. Foundation establishment couldn't be attempted just anywhere. At the very least, one would need a second-grade spiritual vein with an abundance of spiritual energy. Since he had always concealed his true cultivation level and strength, it was inconvenient for him to undertake foundation establishment in the Red Leaf Valley Market. Moreover, the cave dwellings in the Red Leaf Valley Market only held inferior second-grade spiritual energy. This spiritual energy was only sufficient for cultivation practice. To attempt a breakthrough to foundation establishment, it was significantly lacking. Furthermore, the breakthrough to foundation establishment involved a large disturbance, which could affect the marketplace's natural spiritual energy. Most marketplaces would not readily agree to host someone's attempt to break through to foundation establishment. Previously, my master gave me a token so that I can go to Qingyun Market and rent a second-order top-quality cave mansion. A second-order top-quality cave mansion is more than enough for us to attempt foundation establishment, Xiaoxia told Lu Changxing. She had already considered this matter thoroughly beforehand. For her own foundation establishment she could return to Qingyun sect, where there was a third-grade spiritual vein. But Lu Changxing was not a disciple of the Qingyun sect. He couldn't go there for his foundation establishment. For ordinary cultivators looking to rent a second-order top-quality spiritual vein dwelling, the only option would be to go to one of the 3 great immortal cities. However, the 3 great immortal cities were far away and exceedingly troublesome to reach. Thus, she considered the largest cultivation marketplace under the Qingyun sect. All right, then we shall head to the Qingyun market. Lu Changxing nodded as he heard this. He too had heard of the Qingyun market. He knew it was the largest marketplace under the Qingyun sect. It was even larger than the 9 Dragons market where he had been before. Such marketplaces typically do not open their second-order dwellings to the public. If it were not for Xiaoxia, he would indeed have no way to rent such a top-quality second-order cave mansion. He might have had to go to an immortal city to undertake his foundation establishment. Shortly after, the two of them left the secular world behind and set out towards the Qingyun market. Lu Changxing glanced at the map. From their location to the Qingyun market was a journey of over 10,000 miles. However, neither he nor Xiaoxia were in a rush. They continued on, enjoying their journey as if they were sightseeing or on a leisurely outing. When nearing the Qingyun market, the two of them, having disguised their appearance and concealed their cultivation aura, even ran into 3 robber cultivators. But these were only 3 energy refinement late-stage robber cultivators. Facing these 3 robber cultivators, Lu Changxing naturally showed no mercy, earning a little extra on the side. Now at the peak of qi refinement, his strength was comparable to that of a foundation establishment cultivator. Together with Xianxia, as long as they didn't encounter a foundation establishment cultivator, they generally wouldn't run into any trouble. Besides, as long as they didn't come across foundation establishment cultivators like the red rogue youth they had encountered before, they could take down an average foundation establishment cultivator with their full strength and techniques. After a month's time, Lu Changxing and Xianxia arrived at the Qingyun market. The entire marketplace was centered around a precipitous mountain, surrounded by mist, reaching high into the clouds. The mountain was encircled by a basin-like area, bordered by several large mountains, making it inaccessible to ordinary people. Qingyun Market. Xianxia and Lu Changxing looked at the distant peak, steering their flying artifact towards the marketplace entrance. The entrance was bustling with countless cultivators, much like the Nine Dragons Market, with an endless stream of people queuing up. Just then, a surge of spiritual power flowed into Lu Changxing's body, accompanied by the sound of a system notification. Congratulations to the host, your first offspring has completed the beginning phases of cultivation, entering the path of immortality. Bloodline effect. 5% increase in the likelihood of offspring having a spiritual root. Plus 1 lucky draw chance. My first offspring has started his cultivation journey. Lu Changxing was slightly startled upon hearing this sudden system notification before it dawned on him that his son, Lu Xianxia, had completed the initial phase of cultivation. The last time he returned to Qingzhou Mountain, his wife Lu Miaoyan had mentioned that Lu Xianxia was ready to start cultivating. At that time, Lu Changxing didn't have the time, so he left Lu Miaoyan to handle it. As for his son completing the initial phase of cultivation so quickly, Lu Changxing wasn't surprised. Over the years he hadn't visited the White Jade Tower, and aside from his own cultivation expenses, his biggest expenditure was on his children. For Lu Xianxia, everything had been of the spiritual kind since childhood, eating spirit rice, taking spirit meals. At the age of 6, he even began spending spirit stones to buy elixir medicines that consolidated and nourished the foundation. His conditions were far more privileged than those of the Lu family's ordinary descendants. If his son had taken as long as he, the father, had, 10 months, to complete the initial phase of cultivation, that indeed would have been strange. I didn't expect that the start of my child's cultivation journey would not only entitle me to a lucky draw but also increase the chances of my future offspring having a spiritual root, although only by 5%, which is a bit little, but this probability can probably still be increased, Lu Changxing mused as he looked at the system notification. He wasn't overly excited about the lottery draw as he had done it many times before. However, he did find the passive increase in his offspring's likelihood of having a spiritual root appealing. After all, even with selective breeding, the chances of his children possessing a spiritual root were not especially high. Chapter 308. Lottery Dao Soldier Soy Mother. _1 Changxing What's Wrong? Reading Omicron N Novel Cool. Omicron. Li Xiaoxia saw that Lu Changxing had suddenly fallen into a daze and asked aloud. It's my first time seeing such a huge marketplace. I'm a bit amazed. Lu Changxing immediately came back to his senses and responded offhandedly. He no longer looked at the system interface. I've only been to this Qingyun market once myself. I can't even imagine how bustling the 3 great immortal cities must be. Upon hearing this, Xiaoxia said the following. Shortly thereafter, the two queued up to enter the marketplace. After paying 10 spirit stones and registering their information quickly, they received tokens and entered the market. Xiaoxia then started to introduce the layout of Qingyun Market to Lu Changxing. The market is divided into the outer city, inner city, and core area. The outer city is a gathering place for poor and ordinary loose cultivators. As for the inner city, it depends on the area. The marketplace's shops, inns, stations, residential areas, and so on, are all concentrated here. As for the core area, it was the peak they had seen before that pierced the skies. A portion at the foot of the core area's mountain has cave mansions open to the public. The second-order top-quality cave mansion Xiaoxia spoke of was also on this mountain. The two made their way into the inner city. Looking at the bustling shops on both sides made Lu Changxing mentally prepare to deal with the young man in the red robes' illicit gains in the marketplace after his foundation establishment. He hadn't been to Nine Dragons Market in a year. So the red-robed youth's loot had always been on him, unprocessed. Furthermore, after foundation establishment, the Seven Luminaries' Great Freedom Sword scripture could break through to the second level, and he could condense the Seven Luminaries' heart lamp within his body. This Seven Luminaries' heart lamp could also be cast into a physical magic artifact, serving as a life-bound spiritual artifact. The materials needed to cast a life-bound spiritual artifact might be directly available in this Qingyun market. After a brief stroll in the inner city, they headed towards the central peak of the marketplace. Kaiyun Peak, Xianxia, needs to rent a second-order top-quality cave mansion. Upon reaching the core area and finding the person responsible for renting cave mansions, Xianxia showed her true face, presented her token, and spoke. Sister Xiao is renting a cave mansion. May I ask for what purpose? If you're secluding yourself to impact your cultivation level, we currently have an upper-grade A cave mansion available, but if you're merely practicing temporarily, AB ranked cave mansion would be sufficient for Sister Xiao, said the person, whose surname was Han, and appeared to be in his 40s or 50s, a disciple of Qingyun sect as well. After checking the token, he immediately replied cordially. To impact my cultivation level, hence the need to rent a second-order top-quality A cave mansion, said Xiaoxia. Alright, Sister Xiao, a second-order top-quality A cave mansion is 500 spirit stones per year, Han said. Even for their own people they still had to pay with spirit stones to rent, though the price was already considered cheap. After all, the cave mansion Lu Changxing rented in Red Leaf Valley Market could almost be rented for 100 spirit stones. Thank you for your trouble, Brother Han. Xiaoxia took out the spirit stones. The other party didn't say much else, quickly helping them with the formalities and explaining some matters. I wonder if Sister Xiao is making this breakthrough to foundation establishment for herself, or is renting the cave mansion for a friend. If people found out that Shiyu Fairy of Kaiyun Peak is actually spending time in the same room with a man. Tiske. After Xiaoxia and Lu Changxing left, this Han sighed and shook his head. Although had never met Xiaoxia, he had heard of her name and reputation. After all, she was a disciple of a nascent soul Immortal. Not only was she incredibly beautiful, but she was also exceptionally talented and had a modicum of fame in Qingyun sect. However, since this person is a friend of Fairy Shiyu, he must also be quite young. To dare to go for foundation establishment at this age, he must be no ordinary person. I wonder if he'll succeed in foundation establishment. A trace of envy and a hint of melancholy appeared in Han's eyes. Had been appointed to handle renting in this marketplace. Although his status and treatment were good, without an opportunity, foundation establishment was nearly hopeless. Therefore, seeing someone younger come to attempt foundation establishment, he felt quite sentimental. Xiaoxia and Lu Changxing came to a misty part of the mountain waste. Utilizing the token for the restriction, they opened the gate of the cave mansion. The cave mansion wasn't large, roughly 100 square meters or so. Inside, the spiritual energy was dense and miasmic, nearly forming a thin mist. Is this what a second-order top-quality cave mansion looks like? Lu Changxing took in the dense spiritual energy, feeling as if he were floating on air, his whole body suffused with a smooth sensation. It was his first time renting a second-order cave mansion. Whether in Jianghu Valley or Red Leaf Valley Market, he had only used lower-grade spirit veins of the second rank. He could tell that this cave mansion was not merely second-order top quality but also had formations that gathered spiritual energy to the extreme. This A-ranked cave mansion is specifically used for cultivation breakthroughs, so it concentrates a lot of spiritual energy. Once the breakthrough is completed, the spiritual energy will thin out and need to be condensed again, Xiaoxia explained. Although she had never been to such a cave mansion, she had access to second-order top-quality spirit veins at Kaiyun Peak. She knew what a second-order top-quality spirit vein was like. Lu Changxing nodded slightly and checked the interior of the cave mansion. He designated a bedroom and a practice room with a simple stone table and stone bed. It was very Spartan. But this was typical for a cave mansion. As long as it was livable, it was acceptable. Since he had a little over a month until foundation establishment, they didn't practice day and night as usual. After a short time together, they both sat cross-legged and adjusted their qi, spirit, and mentality. Lu Changxing wasn't in a rush to tune his state. In his mind he silently called out, "System, I want to draw a prize." Immediately the familiar system roulette wheel appeared. Start the draw. Lu Changsheng's expression remained utterly calm, his mental spirit stirred slightly. And soon, a flash of golden light appeared on the wheel and began to spin rapidly. After a while, the golden light gradually settled on other. Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Dao Soldier Golden Armor Bean Mother. The reward has been dispatched to the system space, the host can check it at any time. Chapter 309. Lottery Dao Soldier Soy Mother. A golden bean the size of an egg emerged from the big wheel, accompanied by a system notification sound. Reading Omicron Novel Cool. Omicron least Dao Soldier Golden Armor Bean Mother? Lu Changxing saw the reward from this lottery draw and his eyebrows raised slightly. He had no idea what this Dao Soldier was. He looked at the Golden Armor Bean Mother in the system space. Dao Soldier, Golden Armor Bean Mother, Quality, 3rd rank. Description: a spirit plant class Dao Soldier cultivated by the Golden Armor sect, refined through secret techniques. It can transform into a 2nd rank Golden Armor warrior, and through planting and cultivation, it can propagate spirit beans. The beans germinate in 3 years, grow leaves in another 3, flower in the next, and bear beans in the last set of 3 years. A spirit plant class Dao Soldier that can turn into a 2nd rank Golden Armor warrior? Lu Changxing, looking at the description of the Golden Armor Bean Mother in the system space, showed a hint of interest. Based on this introduction, he roughly guessed what this Dao Soldier was. It should be similar to a puppet or a demon beast. This Golden Armor Bean Mother could transform into a 2nd rank Golden Armor warrior, which in Lu Changxing's view, should be equivalent to the strength of a puppet or demon beast at the Foundation establishment stage. What interested Lu Changxing the most was that this Golden Armor Bean Mother could propagate spirit beans through planting and cultivation. Although he didn't know what use these spirit beans had, he found it very interesting. After all, if it were just the combat power of the 2nd rank in Lu Changxing's view, it certainly didn't match the quality of the 3rd rank. But Xianxia was still there. It wasn't convenient for him to extract the Bean Mother from the system space out of thin air to check the detailed information now. He planned to take a closer look at this Golden Armor Bean Mother when he had time. Immediately after, Lu Changxing gathered his mental spirit and sat down cross-legged with his eyes closed. He operated the 7 Luminaries' Great Freedom Sword scripture and began to adjust his condition. At the same time, his thoughts in his mind started to flow. Scenes from his youth before his memories awakened. Scenes after awakening his memories at the Qingyun sect's heart-questioning platform. The disappointment in his heart when he failed to be chosen by the Immortal sects. The fear of death when he encountered the Qin family's ambush on his way to Qingzhou Mountain. The excitement and joy in his heart when he married Lu Lanshu, Lu Zier, Lu Qing'er, and when his first son Lu Pingan was born. With the system, obtaining 2nd rank talisman making, maintaining caution, and displaying his skills. These scenes, like fleeting glimpses, appeared in Lu Changxing's mind as vivid as if before his eyes. After a long while, Lu Changxing's thoughts gradually calmed down. In his view, although the past decade had not been easy, it hadn't been particularly arduous either. He had no regrets or obsessions in his heart. He felt clear-minded, spiritually fulfilled, and full of hope for the future. Although Xiaoxia's situation had some impact on him, with the system by his side, he was full of confidence in his future. He didn't consider it a troublesome matter, nor one that needed too much worry. At worst, he would just wait until he achieved core formation. As long as he reached core formation, he could legitimately visit the Qingyun sect to ask for her hand in marriage. Furthermore, he, Lu Changxing, also had a debt of gratitude to a nascent soul immortal. So past half a month. Lu Changxing awoke from meditation, opening his eyes. He felt that his energy and spirit were at their peak, his condition perfect. He was ready to attempt Foundation establishment at any moment. Changxing, there are only 10 days left until the night of the full moon, which is when I plan to attempt Foundation establishment. If you need more time to prepare, we can wait until next month. Xiaoxia also woke up, opened her beautiful eyes and said to Lu Changxing. Attempting Foundation establishment was a major event. The condition was extremely important. Some people, in order to be cautious, would even sit in meditation for years, waiting for a soul-inspiring opportunity. She was waiting for the night of the full moon, the time when yin energy condensed. But this timing wasn't necessarily suitable for Lu Changxing. "I'm already prepared, ready at any time," Lu Changxing said with a light laugh. His voice was laced with a confidence that suggested he held a winning hand. In front of Xiaoxia, he didn't conceal his confident and spirited demeanor too much. "Good. Xianxia responded with a faint smile, noticing Lu Changxing's confident appearance. During this time, not only had Lu Changxing gained a deeper understanding of her, but she had also seen a different side of Lu Changxing. "Xiyu, how are your preparations? Do you feel confident?" Lu Changxing asked Xianxia. He was almost completely confident about his own foundation establishment, full of absolute conviction. But he still didn't quite understand Xiaoxia's situation. 50%, Xiaoxia replied. Xiaoxia spoke softly. "Only a 50% chance?" Upon hearing this, Lu Changxing's heart gave a slight jolt. 50% is already enough. Xiaoxia calmly stated, her entire being exuding an ethereal and transcendent charm. "Since you say it's enough, Xiyu, it must be sufficient." Lu Changxing did not probe further. He had long noticed that Xiaoxia would from time to time reveal that noble and sacred, cold and detached demeanor, akin to the nine heavens' bright moon. He knew she was still influenced by her cultivation technique. This 50% confidence probably wasn't a problem with the 3 challenges in the foundation establishment, in lifting the Tao platform. It was likely about the emotional tribulation. "Xiyu, is your cultivation nearing perfection?" Lu Changxing immediately inquired. "I'm 1 step away. When establishing my foundation, I hope Lu Lang can assist me." Xiaoxia let her ethereal demeanor fade, revealing a sweet smile as she softly spoke. "Xiyu, tell me the truth, does this step really exist? If it doesn't, I won't mind. Moreover, with my current situation, I don't need any secret technique to successfully establish my foundation," Lu Changxing said. He naturally knew what his assistance entailed. When they were intimate before, Xiaoxia had mentioned that when striking at foundation establishment, it would also be the final step in her cultivation. At that time, she would also help him establish his foundation through a secret technique. But deep down, Lu Changxing vaguely felt that her cultivation was almost sufficient, and whether this step existed or not didn't really matter. "No." Xiaoxia's lips revealed a pure and sweet smile, like that of an innocent young girl. Lu Changxing was taken aback. He hadn't expected Xiaoxia to be so forthright. "Since Lu Lang is asking, Xiyu naturally won't deceive you." Xiaoxia happily smiled, letting her delicate body fall into Lu Changxing's embrace, cuddling cozily into him. Resting her cheek against his chest, she spoke softly, "But Xiyu simply wishes to do so to help Lu Lang. Because Xiyu wants to tell Lu Lang that my love for you, although it started from cultivation, does not end with cultivation." Xiaoxia lifted her head slightly, her clear beautiful eyes meeting Lu Changxing's gaze. "Then you should also know that the fate between you and me is now not something that can be severed just because you say so." Lu Changxing had restrained himself from speaking his mind before, worried that it would affect Xiaoxia's state of mind, not mentioning many things. Now that she had so candidly revealed her intentions, Lu Changxing felt less concern about these matters. "Xiyu is well aware." Xiaoxia lifted her head, her face full of love as she kissed him and said, "With Lu Lang having so many beautiful wives and concubines in time, you will naturally forget about Xiyu." "And if I can't forget?" Lu Changxing asked. "Changxing, I'm sorry." Xiaoxia was taken aback, her voice trembling slightly as she spoke. "There's nothing to be sorry about, Xiyu. As long as you can successfully establish your foundation, I'll comply with whatever you wish." Lu Changxing quickly reassured her, worried he might affect her mentality, impacting her foundation establishment. After all, to him, these matters were not as important as cultivation at the moment. With cultivation there would be a future, but if cultivation failed, there would be even more trouble ahead. "Thank you, Changxing," Xiaoxia said softly. "There's no need for such words between us." Lu Changxing held her delicate face, capturing her lips with his. "At the core area of Qingyun Market, all A-grade cave dwellings are rented out? I remember there was one left before, wasn't there?" A 24 or 25-year-old youth, handsome and majestic, with a spirited air about him, inquired of Steward Han in front of him. "Young Master Meng, last month Fairy Xiyu from Kaiyun Peak came and rented that A-grade cave dwelling." Steward Han looked at the white-robed youth and respectfully replied. "Xiyu Junior's sister, I recall she went down the mountain for experience, didn't she? Besides, if she wanted to strike for a higher cultivation level, she could have just returned to our sect and make the attempt under the protection of the sect leader." Upon hearing this, the youth furrowed his brows slightly. "All right, since Xiyu Junior's sister has rented it, let it be. Arrange a B-grade cave dwelling for me." The young man didn't dwell on it and simply waved his hand, instructing directly. "Yes, young Master Meng, Please wait a moment, I will arrange it for you now. Steward Han immediately responded. Chapter 310. Foundation Establishment, Yin Yang 5 Elements Dao Foundation. _1 May, also called the Gao Month. Reading Omicron Novel Cool. Omicron Lease on the 15th of May, this day is also known as the Day of Great Yin's Coalescence. As night fell, a crescent moon was slowly rising. In the Qingyun marketplace, nestled on the mountainside of Core Peak within a cave dwelling. Changxing. Xianxia looked at the man before her, Lu Changxing, and called out softly. She was dressed in a moon-white garment. The curves of her lithe figure were tastefully concealed by the attire. Yet her beauty was still obvious. Underneath the skirt, the outlines of her long, straight, jade-like legs were faintly visible. Her delicate feet adorned with white silk stockings and embroidered shoes appeared untouched by dust. At this moment, Xianxia reverted to her formerly detached demeanor. Her bearing was cold and saintly, like the mysterious moon in the 9 heavens. Her devastating beauty carried an aloof grace that seemed untouched by worldly taint. She was like the everlasting ice and snow, inspiring reverence at a glance. Let's begin. Lu Changxing gazed at Xiaoxia's bearing, nodded, and spoke no further. Xiaoxia's cool and luminous gaze met with Lu Changxing's eyes, which shone like stars, clear and devoid of worldly desires. In the most secret depths of her heart, ripples of love began to stir. Her breath grew slightly erratic, betraying the fairy's inner turmoil. They locked eyes for a moment and her soft, boneless, white hands reached out to encircle his neck. As stars shifted and oceans transformed, amidst the flowing water and falling flowers, a harmonious symphony of life began to play. The two of them listened to this silent symphony. Spirit and flesh started to merge into the rhythm of the symphony, making it increasingly hard to distinguish between each other. Outside the cave dwelling under the endless night sky, the bright moon hung high. A fierce flood dragon soared from the abyss toward the bright moon, roaring as it went. In the face of the vicious flood dragon, the cool and luminous bright moon burst forth with dazzling light. However, under the flood dragon's assault, the cool and proud bright moon seemed to frown like a fairy, and with a soft chant, endless moonlight poured forth, merging into the flood dragon's body. The flood dragon, having absorbed the essence of the bright moon, howled towards the sky, yearning to transform from a flood dragon into a true dragon. Changxing. Inside the dwelling, although Xiaoxia maintained the dual cultivation stance, the passion that had adorned her beautiful face was now replaced by a noble and sacred radiance. Lu Changxing said nothing. As the great yin moonlight from Xiaoxia surged into his body, his dantian seemed to be set aflame with towering waves, roaring continuously. This roaring was inaudible to others, but Lu Changxing felt it clearly within himself, like thunder rumbling mightily. He hadn't yet begun to initiate the foundation establishment, yet his 7-colored dantian was already roaring and churning. It seemed as if a myriad of golden light wished to condense from within the dantian. If I do not succeed, it would be a defiance of the natural order. Lu Changxing felt this overwhelming and vast power, his eyes bright with a spirited gleam. With a gesture, a porcelain bottle from his storage bag fell into his hand. It was the foundation establishment elixir. His current condition for undertaking the foundation establishment, even without the elixir, held a 70 to 80% certainty of success. But, even with the slightest risk, Lu Changxing was unwilling to accept it. The foundation establishment elixir could not only harmonize the 3 barriers, enhancing the spiritual roots transformation and absorption of nature's spiritual energy, but it could also ensure that one would not suffer backlash in the event of a failed foundation establishment. If foundation establishment failed, at best one would be injured and their cultivation level would regress. At worst, the meridians and dantian could be damaged, leaving one crippled or even leading to the demise of one's cultivation path. Therefore, even with a 99% chance of success, Lu Changxing would choose to consume the foundation establishment elixir for his breakthrough. Boom. As the foundation establishment elixir was ingested, Lu Changxing's 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture began to circulate within him, as spiritual power, like a tidal wave, converged towards his dantian, assaulting the barriers for foundation establishment. The spiritual energy within the cave also surged towards him like a raging tempest at this moment, forming a vortex of spiritual energy. Rumble. Simultaneously, the qi and blood within Lu Changxing's body began to seethe tumultuously, rushing forth like mighty rivers and streams. First barrier of foundation establishment, the Qi and blood barrier. This barrier required the infusion of immense nature's spiritual energy into one's meridians and dantian. If the body cannot withstand this process, foundation establishment would fail. This is why cultivators over the age of 60 whose bodies gradually age and Qi and blood weaken, or those with disabilities and hidden illnesses, have almost no hope of establishing their foundation, because they simply cannot bear such an infusion of immense spiritual energy. Lu Changxing, having cultivated the 100 refinements treasure body art, possessed a fleshly body comparable to high-quality magic artifacts. Facing the spiritual energy tempest that swept through like a storm, he was like an ancient divine mountain, unshaken by wind and rain, standing tall and immovable. Second barrier of foundation establishment, the mana barrier. During the Qi refinement realm, one transforms nature's spiritual energy into one's own spiritual power. But when initiating foundation establishment, one must transform this spiritual power into mana, converting from a gaseous to a liquid state. The purer and denser the spiritual power, the easier it is to liquefy and transform into mana. If one consumed too many elixir medicines during the Qi refinement realm, or relied on breakthrough elixirs, tonic supplements and other methods, it could lead to a base of spiritual power that's insubstantial and impure mana, making it hard to condense the Tao foundation. Lu Changxing cultivated the orthodox level cultivation technique 7 luminaries Great Freedom Sword Scripture. Thus his spiritual power was naturally extremely pure. While he relied on a constant intake of elixirs and often engaged in dual cultivation with women, 7 luminaries Sword Qi was capable of refining away the elixir toxicity. Additionally, his dual cultivation was practiced with moderation, merely as a marital pleasure, and was not used as a means to enhance his cultivation level. Therefore, there wasn't a trace of insubstantiality in the foundation of his spiritual power, it was solid and unwavering. Furthermore, under the influence of the Golden Crow Elixir's Great Sun Essence and Xianxia's Great Yin Moonlight, he saw in his dantian that the essence of the Great Sun and the Great Yin Moonlight seemed to transform into a yin-yang fish, helping him swallow and refine nature's spiritual energy. Within his Qi ocean, the rich gaseous spiritual power from the dantian was continuously being compressed into a liquid state, ready to transform his dantian into a true lake. The third barrier, divine sense barrier. Previously, under Xiaoxia's guidance and with the aid of the Purple Mansion nurturing divine technique and Jade Soulflower, he had already given birth to divine sense. Chapter 311. Foundation Establishment, Yin-Yang 5 Elements Tao Foundation. Although Lu Changxing's divine sense only extended 3 feet, it was still divine sense nonetheless. Reading Omicron Novel Cool. Omicron least therefore this challenge did not exist for him. Next, is the transformation of the lake of mana into the true lake, the coalescing of the Tao Foundation. Having spent so much time with Xiaoxia, Lu Changxing was exceedingly familiar with the process of foundation establishment. He knew that after passing the 3 challenges of foundation establishment, the most crucial step awaited. He would use his divine sense to precisely control his physical body and mana, transforming all the mist-like spiritual energy within his Qi ocean core into liquid mana. This would then turn the lake of mana into the true lake and lift up the platform of the Tao, shedding his mortal shell. This step demanded not only the cultivator's spiritual root aptitude but also the external environment. If the spiritual root's aptitude was too poor, absorbing and transforming spiritual energy too slowly, there would be insufficient transformed liquid mana, preventing the coalescing of the Tao platform and leading to a failed foundation establishment. This is why most cultivators needed to rely on foundation establishment elixirs to build their foundation. Apart from the earth spirit root and heavenly spiritual root, even a superior grade spiritual root could fail the foundation establishment if one was not careful with absorbing and transforming spiritual energy. Lu Changxing's current 5th grade spiritual root wasn't exceptional, but it wasn't so bad as to hold him back. Moreover, he also possessed half of a Gingjin body constitution. Furthermore, he was not only assisted by a foundation establishment elixir, but he also had the Great Sun essence of the Golden Crow elixir and Xiaoxia's Supreme Yin Moonlight. Boom, boom, boom. Raging spiritual energy surged toward Lu Changxing in a vast and mighty vortex that spanned dozens of feet. Inside his body, it was as if mountains crumbled and seas tsunamied with unceasing roars. Gaseous spiritual power continuously misted then liquefied into droplets of multicolored, crystalline mana. Each droplet of mana contained a power far greater than his river-like spiritual power. This was a qualitative difference, like the difference between crude iron and steel refined 100 times over. As the gaseous mana lake gradually transformed into a liquid mana lake, the mana within surged and rolled, and a 7-colored jade disc slowly took shape. It was the yin-yang foundation base of the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture. However, just at this moment, suddenly, out of nowhere, Lu Changxing saw a wisp of spirit-nurturing energy abruptly rush into his lake of mana. It allowed the great sun essence and supreme yin moonlight, akin to twin fishes of yin and yang, to blend perfectly and rush together into the 7-colored jade disc. Someone is undergoing foundation establishment. Hiss, such a terrifying spiritual vortex. This is no ordinary person's foundation establishment effort. It must be a prodigy of the Qingyun sect. By the looks of it, they've reached the crucial moment of foundation establishment. The anomaly in nature's spiritual energy caused by Lu Changsheng's foundation establishment attracted the attention of many within and outside Core Peak. They realized someone was undergoing foundation establishment. And from the size and fluctuations of the spiritual vortex, they deduced that this person was far from ordinary. Tiske, such a rare sight, this spiritual vortex. Is this fairy Shiyu attempting foundation establishment, or one of her friends? The steward Han immediately guessed that it was something related to Xiaoxia's dwelling when he saw the location of the spiritual vortex. While people in the Qingyun market did undergo foundation establishment from time to time, it was not a very large number. Moreover, a spiritual vortex of such magnificent grandeur was clearly a sign of a genius at work. Is it Sister Shiyu who is undergoing foundation establishment? It seems I should go and offer my congratulations. Halfway up the mountain, within a E-character cave dwelling, a spirited and vigorous young man opened his eyes, walked out of the cave dwelling, and muttered to himself upon seeing the spiritual vortex. Inside the dwelling, fairy Xiaoxia, with her pure and radiant jade-like body, shone like the bright moon, adorned by a sacred glow of moonlight, her beauty beyond compare. She watched Lu Changxing, who was attempting foundation establishment, and softly chanted, "The world abounds with troubling affections, yet the bright moon shines upon the true heart. In the supreme forgetful love technique's dreamy voyage, only the great Tao remains in the heart." A complexity briefly crossed her holy countenance. Then her expression settled into calm and detached tranquility, as if she had found liberation or acceptance. The supreme forgetful love technique, intangible and invisible, the restraint that troubled her for so long at her realm's bottleneck, dissipated like ice and snow at that moment with her acceptance. This change in her aura promptly gathered the surrounding spiritual vortex, and she began her attempt at foundation establishment. Just as Xiaoxia began her foundation establishment, what's going on here? Lu Changxing looked at the yin-yang fishes that had entered his 7 luminaries foundation base. He could clearly sense that the originally misaligned Great Sun Essence and Supreme Yin Moonlight had achieved a perfect balance under the influence of the spirit-nurturing energy, and there was an addition of an abstruse and profound force. Together, these 3 forces merged into a Taiji yin-yang fish that swam within the 7 luminaries foundation base. As if within the 7-colored jade disk of the Tao Foundation, the powers of the solar and lunar luminaries were being absorbed and devoured by the Taiji yin-yang fish, causing Lu Changsheng's 7 luminaries Tao Foundation to vibrate and resonate, starting to coalesce anew. Could this wisp of energy actually enhance the quality of the Tao Foundation just like the Great Sun Essence and Supreme Yin Moonlight? Lu Changxing looked at the changes in his Tao Foundation with a mix of amazement and doubt. He wasn't surprised by the inclusion of the Great Sun Essence or the Supreme Yin Moonlight into the platform of the Tao, since Xiaoxia had previously told him that the Great Sun Essence was a rare treasure of heaven and earth. It could solidify his foundation at a deeper level, and even take his 7 luminaries Tao Foundation to the next level. The same was true of her Supreme Yin Moonlight. However, he had not anticipated that the wisp of spirit-nurturing energy, which a nascent soul female cultivator had once left within him and that he had nearly forgotten, would also surge forth at this moment. Initially, the wisp of spirit-nurturing energy had a warming effect on the body, but later on, there was no significant effect. He had spent some time researching it, consulting numerous texts to see what this energy was, but after a long search without finding any relevant information, he remained unclear about the nature of the energy. Seeing that it did not affect him negatively and with no way to handle it, he had let it be, slowly forgetting about it. Chapter 312. Foundation Establishment, Yin-Yang 5 Elements Tao Foundation. Reading Omicron in Novel Cool. Omicron M. Lease unexpectedly at the final moment of his foundation establishment, the spirit-nurturing energy unexpectedly emerged, allowing the Great Sun Essence and Tying Moon Essence to merge perfectly. He could feel that before this moment, the Great Sun Essence and the Tying Moon Essence were not harmonious, failing to achieve balance. It was under the influence of this spirit-nurturing energy that they could. Moreover, he vaguely felt that this spirit-nurturing energy was even more formidable than the Great Sun Essence and even Xianxia's Tying Moon Essence. I wonder what my Tao Foundation can transform into under this power? Lu Changxing watched the seven-colored jade disc-like Tao Foundation in the Dan Lake humming and trembling, witnessing his own foundation base recondensing. As for what kind of foundation base his original seven-colored jade disc-like base would turn into, Lu Changxing had no idea. After all, Xianxia had only roughly explained a few types of foundation bases to him. But when it comes to foundation bases, even if they are the same, they vary based on different people's cultivation techniques and conditions. One can't generalize. However, Lu Changxing knew that he now needed a massive amount of spiritual energy to support the recondensation of his foundation base. Instantly, his entire being became like a black hole, wholeheartedly devouring the nature's spiritual energy from all directions, refining the spiritual energy and gathering it into his foundation base. Rumble. In the Dan Lake, the foundation table shaped like a seven-colored jade disc grew brighter and more dazzling. In this process, his seven luminaries Tao Foundation, due to the sun and moon sectors being devoured by the yin-yang fish, gradually turned its seven colors into five. And after swallowing the sun and moon sectors, the small yin-yang fish that had grown significantly larger swam out from the jade disc, circulating around it. At this moment, the new Tao Foundation began to slowly take shape. The foundation base with its yin-yang 5 elements light slowly circulated, filled with profound mysteries and gently rose from the Dan Lake. Boom, boom, boom. As the foundation table rose, Lu Changxing's heart involuntarily started to beat faster. His meridians expanded, his bones creaked noisily, and his blood surged like great rivers and oceans. Each heartbeat brought forth an increase in his entire Bodhis energy, growing in might from inside out. Boom. Eventually, Lu Changxing's foundation table lifted off from the Dan Lake and spiraled to his Qi Ocean core. The foundation table displayed colors of the 5 elements, surrounded by swirling yin-yang energies. In an instant, rays of light burst forth from the foundation base, radiating so intensely they almost penetrated his body. Accompanied by the vast rays of light, an indescribable mana spread out at this moment, causing Lu Changxing's hair to flutter without any wind, lifting the foundation base, shedding his mortal coil. This massive force of the yin-yang 5 elements circulated within Lu Changxing's body. It cleansed his marrow and polished his skin, scouring every inch of flesh and muscle. Lu Changxing, who cultivated the 100 refinements treasure body art, already had an immaculate body, but at this moment, still a considerable amount of impurities were expelled. Time passed no one knew how long. As the inner brilliance dissipated, the transformation ended, and Lu Changxing opened his eyes. Foundation establishment succeeded. His pupils seemed to circulate with the yin-yang energies, emitting blinding rays of light. The impurities on his body dispersed, releasing a refreshing fragrance. Is this what foundation establishment feels like? Lu Changxing looked at his pale, translucent body, now reborn from bone to flesh. Feeling the power filling his entire body, a satisfied smile appeared on his face. Foundation establishment was always a small goal he had strived for. Now he had finally taken that step. In this world he could at least protect himself to a certain degree. With my current strength, I could probably kill my former self with a slap of my hand. Lu Changxing felt an unprecedented surge of power within him, and he thought to himself. After his breakthrough in foundation establishment, he felt his mana had increased more than tenfold. Moreover, at the moment of his breakthrough, the profound origin bead within him also spun wildly, inhaling and exhaling spiritual energy. It gradually transformed the stored spiritual power into mana. His internal mana had nearly tripled from its original level. Right then, Lu Changxing felt better and more confident than ever before. Even if he faced the young man in the red robe from before, he could fight against him. As for killing him, it was hard to say. After all, his licking the packet revealed that the opponent had a backup. And he had just broken through foundation establishment, still lacking the appropriate techniques for the foundation establishment stage. My divine sense is almost at 18 zhang. That's my only weakness now. Lu Changxing then checked the status of his divine sense. Normal cultivators just breaking through to foundation establishment typically have a divine sense of around 10 zhang. His 18 feet stature, although far surpassing the average level, was indeed a weak point compared to his physical body and mana. Immediately after, Lu Changxing looked towards the Dao platform within his Qi Ocean Dantian. The Dao platform was like a jade disc, exhibiting 5 colors surrounded by the yin-yang energies. Yin-yang 5 elements foundation base, so this is my Dao foundation. Lu Changxing, gazing at his own Dao platform, displayed a somewhat odd expression on his face. Upon seeing his Dao foundation, he instinctively knew the information about his own foundation. The originally powerful and dominant 7 luminaries foundation base, after transforming into the yin-yang 5 elements foundation base, not only had more formidable mana. The supreme yin and supreme yang, under the fusion of the great sun essence, the supreme yin moon essence and the spirit nurturing energy had turned into the yin-yang energies. These yin-yang energies had 2 effects. One was that they doubled the effectiveness of his dual cultivation. The other was, by using dual cultivation, to consume his own yin-yang energies to repair and refine someone else's Dao foundation. Dao foundations are categorized as fragmented, flawed, flaw-free, and perfect. His yin-yang energies could repair the flaws and fractures found in fragmented and flawed foundations, ultimately refining them into flaw-free ones. This effect could be said to be exceedingly against the heavens. Even though Lu Changxing did not have much understanding of foundation establishment, he knew that all heavenly treasures capable of repairing Dao foundation flaws were immensely precious and rarely seen. And the fact that his consumption of yin-yang energies could repair such flaws, even refining them into flawless foundations, was truly against the heavens. This Dao foundation effect, is it not tempting me to switch cultivation techniques? Lu Changxing, watching the yin-yang energies flowing on his Dao platform, twitched the corners of his mouth. He thought about the yin-yang harmony technique he possessed. A peripheral sect-level cultivation technique that primarily focused on dual cultivation. Of course, if he switched to the yin-yang harmony technique, relying on the effects of the yin-yang 5 elements foundation base, his cultivation level would progress rapidly. But he only allowed himself to think about it. The yin-yang harmony technique was far inferior to the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture. Although the cultivation speed was much faster, the foundation would be much weaker. Moreover, now that he had established his foundation, switching to another cultivation technique would be very troublesome. If he really switched to another cultivation technique, he might lose 30 to 50% of his cultivation level. However, the second effect of the yin-yang energies made Lu Changxing feel quite pleased. He was well aware that among his current wives and concubines, hardly a few could achieve foundation establishment. At the moment, only Lu Miaoge was hopeful for foundation establishment. But even if she succeeded, it was very likely she would have a flawed foundation. Forging a flawless foundation would be difficult. In such a situation, his Dao foundation effect came into play. If his wives and concubines could forcibly establish their foundations in the future, even if the foundations were fragmented, he could still lend a hand. If I were to make this effect known, I fear countless female cultivators attempting foundation establishment would be willing to present themselves at my doorstep, even willing to have children for it. After all, being able to refine and repair a foundation is also a chance for core formation. But such things definitely cannot be revealed. Otherwise, I might end up being captured by some old monster and used as a tool. Lu Changxing thought to himself. He also knew this matter absolutely should not be revealed carelessly. Now that I've established my foundation, shouldn't I compose a celebratory poem to enhance the occasion? After checking his own condition, an idea suddenly occurred to Lu Changxing. Just as he was racking his brains, ready to come up with a celebratory poem, he suddenly sensed that something was off with Xianxia beside him. Lu Changxing turned his gaze towards Xianxia, who was as cold and pure as the Guanghan fairy, with jade-like skin and bones, bereft of any thread, attempting foundation establishment. Noticing that she was at the point of condensing her Dao foundation. But something seemed amiss with her condition. The condensation of the Dao foundation appeared to have encountered some problems. Lack of spiritual energy. Lu Changxing immediately realized what the problem was. Logically, a second-rank high-grade cave dwelling should have been sufficient for the successful foundation establishment of both of them. But just now, during his breakthrough, he had condensed the 7 luminaries foundation base, then transformed it, recondensing the 7 luminaries foundation base into the yin-yang 5 elements foundation base. At the same time, The profound origin bead inside his body was frantically absorbing spiritual energy. It had nearly depleted over half of the cave dwelling's nature's spiritual energy. And at this moment, Xianxia also began her foundation establishment. Xianxia herself was condensing a perfect foundation base, which required far more of nature's spiritual energy than the average person. In this circumstance, the lack of sufficient spiritual energy from the cave dwelling made it difficult to support Xiaoxia's successful condensation of her Dao foundation. Chapter 313. The idea of establishing one's own family. _1 Xiaoxia, unclothed and composed, sat cross-legged with a dignified and cool expression on her face. Reading Omicron novel cool. Omicron least she hadn't expected that, at the critical moment of foundation establishment, she would encounter a shortage of external spiritual energy. But once foundation establishment reached this step, it was impossible to stop, nor could she afford to. With a graceful motion of her hand, a heap of spirit stones clattered out from the storage bag, absorbing the spiritual energy within the stones. Lu Changxing could tell that most of these spirit stones were lower-grade spirit stones. Only a few were middle-grade spirit stones. This was normal. After all, Xiaoxia, no matter how wealthy, was merely an energy-refining cultivator. Without hesitation, Lu Changxing took out the hundreds of middle-grade spirit stones he had obtained from the Red Rogue youth. With a strong squeeze, he crushed each middle-grade spirit stone into powder, causing the spiritual energy to disperse. Then another porcelain bottle appeared. Shiyu Foundation Establishment Elixir. Lu Changxing poured the inferior foundation establishment elixir from the bottle. He could see that Xiaoxia had not taken any foundation establishment elixirs. Although he did not know why she hadn't prepared any foundation establishment elixirs, given the current situation he felt it was necessary to take one for safety's sake, even if it was an inferior one. Despite being inferior, at least it was better than nothing. Moreover, the inferior foundation establishment elixir was only less effective in harmonizing the three aspects and transforming the absorbed spiritual energy. It could only increase the chances of successful foundation establishment by 10%. As for protecting the meridians and dantian, its efficacy was the same as a regular foundation establishment elixir. It could ensure that a foundation establishment failure would not result in a backlash. Foundation establishment elixir? Xiaoxia's beautiful eyes widened slightly, surprised to see the foundation establishment elixir in Lu Changxing's hand. She had seen Lu Changxing take one himself. She hadn't expected that Lu Changxing would still have another. After all, even within Qingyun sect's inner sect, obtaining a foundation establishment elixir was not easy. Seeing the concerned look on Lu Changxing's face, Xiaoxia's calm heart rippled slightly. "No need," she said softly. Her cultivation of the supreme forgetful love technique was crucial for her foundation, depending on her state of mind. As long as her state of mind reached perfection, she was certain to succeed in foundation establishment without relying on external objects. That was why, despite her status, she could have applied for a foundation establishment elixir but chose not to. Furthermore, it was just an external deficiency of nature's spiritual energy. It was not a complete absence of spiritual energy, which did not mean her foundation establishment was doomed to fail. Therefore, under these circumstances, she did not want to waste Lu Changxing's foundation establishment elixir and owe him a favor. Concentrate on your foundation establishment. Despite Xiaoxia's resistance, Lu Changxing insisted, slapping his hand down. He pushed the foundation establishment elixir directly into Xiaoxia's mouth. While the elixir was precious in his view, things were made to be used. Given Xiaoxia's precarious situation, if the elixir could stabilize matters, he certainly wouldn't hold back. Otherwise, if Xiaoxia failed her foundation establishment, he would feel uneasy about it. Boom! As the foundation establishment elixir entered her stomach, Xiaoxia immediately felt the power of the medicine increasing the spiritual pressure around her, accelerating the conversion and absorption of the surrounding spiritual energy. As she watched Lu Changxing crush the middle-grade spirit stones one by one, she pressed her lips together, sighed softly in her heart, and closed her eyes to concentrate on foundation establishment. Thinking of breaking ties with me that easily? Not so simple. Thinking you could leave before birthing 3 children. Lu Changxing clearly understood Xiaoxia's thoughts. Her affection for him was probably genuine, as was her desire to repay him for his assistance in cultivation and saving her life, thereby untangling their relationship. In such a case, how could Lu Changxing simply let go? Who in the world is undergoing foundation establishment? The amount of spiritual energy they're drawing in is terrifying. Looking at this, foundation establishment should have ended by now, so why is it still continuing? This is going to affect the spiritual energy in our area. Could it be that this person is condensing the legendary perfect foundation base? Even with a perfect foundation base, the amount of spiritual energy involved wouldn't be this massive, nor continue for so long, right? The cultivators near Core Peak, looking at the vortex of spiritual energy swirling above, were bewildered with amazement and confusion. What's happening? The vortex of spiritual energy above Xiyu Jr. Sister's cave abode is still swirling, and the spiritual pressure is starting to rise again. That vortex of spiritual energy weakened just a moment ago, with a faint rosy glow spreading through it, evidence that someone had succeeded in foundation establishment. If that's the case, why is the spiritual pressure rising again as if someone is forming their Tao foundation anew? Could it be, two people are attempting foundation establishment simultaneously? Inside Cave Abode E, a young man looked toward the not-too-distant Cave Abode Jia, where a vortex of spiritual energy swirled above the sky, and frowned slightly. Report to Master Du, this number 9 Jia Cave Abode is rented by Fairy Xiyu of Kaiyun Peak. The steward at the Cave Abode rental place said to the gray-robed elder in front of him, with a face showing signs of age and a hint of the demeanor of an immortal, speaking respectfully. Kaiyun Peak Xianxia? This elder was the false core immortal stationed at Qingyun Market. Seeing this unusual activity of spiritual energy, he also came to inquire who was undergoing foundation establishment. After all, the commotion of this foundation establishment was indeed a bit too large. Were it not for Qingyun Market having a large spirit vein, and that Core Peak spirit vein reached second-rank top grade, such intense activity of spiritual energy could affect the operation of the marketplace's great formation. Yes, Immortal. At that time, Fairy Xiyu was renting the cave abode along with a close friend and indicated it would be used for a realm breakthrough, stated the steward respectfully without concealing anything. Although his cultivation level was only Qi refinement, having served as a steward in Qingyun Market for many years, he had seen many people attempt foundation establishment. He had a rough guess about the situation based on the abnormality of the spiritual energy and knowing that Xianxia had rented the cave abode with another person. Chapter 314. The idea of establishing one's own family. Master Du nodded slightly upon hearing this. He roughly understood that Xianxia came to Qingyun Market for her foundation establishment with a close friend. Otherwise, given Xianxia's situation, there was no need for her to come to the Qingyun Market for her foundation establishment. After understanding the situation, he didn't continue to inquire further. He transformed into a rainbow light and departed. And he ordered that no one should approach this cave dwelling, to avoid disturbing the situation inside. Time slowly passed. No one knew how much time had gone by. The vortex of nature's spiritual energy above the cave dwelling gradually dissipated, with faint colored clouds permeating the air. It's done. In the bedroom, Lu Changxing looked at the enticingly beautiful jade-like body of Xianxia before him. Seeing the foundation establishment spiritual pressure surging around her, he immediately knew that Xianxia's foundation establishment had been successful. A look of joy appeared on his face too. After all, he had worried because the deficiency of nature's spiritual energy had been caused by him. He feared that Xianxia's foundation establishment might fail. However, just at that moment, a crack sound came from within Xianxia's body. Pfft. Xianxia spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Xiyu, what's wrong with you? Lu Changxing, seeing Xianxia vomiting blood, was taken aback and immediately supported her, asking with concern. He didn't know what was going on with her. Why would she vomit blood and have her qi in disorder just after completing her foundation establishment? Fine. Xianxia's beautiful eyes opened, revealing a complicated expression. Her supreme forgetful love technique had succeeded, yet it hadn't. Or rather, under Lu Changxing's influence, her state of mind ultimately wasn't perfect. There was a flaw. This caused her newly established perfect Tao foundation to crack at the base due to the flaw in her state of mind. A vast amount of spiritual energy leaked out from the crack in the foundation base, overflowing from her body. You're in this state and still you say you're fine, Lu Changxing retorted with slight annoyance. He immediately grabbed Xianxia's wrist, preparing to check her physical condition. Normally, such close contact between cultivators to check each other's condition was considered rash. But over the past year, Lu Changxing and Xianxia had become very close. At this time he naturally didn't care about such rashness or gender differences. Just as he grabbed Xiaoxia's wrist, Lu Changxing sensed her body undergoing a transformation under the purification of the foundation base. But at the same time, spiritual energy was leaking out. Because my state of mind wasn't perfect, my Tao foundation became damaged, Xiaoxia said softly, pursing her lips and speaking in a low voice as she saw the slightly angry look on Lu Changxing's face, choosing not to hide it anymore. Maybe it was the flaw in her state of mind that made her less aloof when facing Lu Changxing. The foundation base is damaged? Lu Changxing furrowed his brows slightly upon hearing this. He immediately sent a strand of his divine sense into Xiaoxia's body. Xiaoxia did not resist Lu Changxing's actions. Instantly, Lu Changxing's divine sense accessed the brilliantly shining foundational base in Xiaoxia's dantian. The foundational base was moon-white in its entirety. In the center of the base, a faint cyan moon circulated. It was Xiaoxia's supreme mysterious moon Tao foundation. But at this moment, this perfect jade-like moon-white foundation base had a clear crack from which spiritual energy was leaking out. Even with a crack, Xiyu, your foundational base is still considered a perfect one, Lu Changxing reassured her. I wonder if my yin-yang energies can repair this crack? Lu Changxing, observing the obvious crack on the foundation base, thought of his yin-yang energies. It seemed somewhat fortuitous in his heart. He had just condensed the yin-yang 5 elements foundation base. The yin-yang energies of the foundational base could repair and refine the base. And now the exact problem Xiaoxia's base had was a crack in her perfect foundation, not an innate flaw. Don't worry, just complete your rebirth and solidify your cultivation level. I have a way to repair your foundation. Lu Changxing withdrew his divine sense, exhaling gently and saying to Xiaoxia. Using yin-yang energies to repair and refine a foundational base was his secret, not to be divulged to outsiders. But as Xiaoxia was his consort, Lu Changxing naturally would not keep it concealed. Moreover, he was eager to see how effective his yin-yang energies were. Repair the foundational base? Xiaoxia's typically cold and pale face showed a trace of surprise. She did not expect Lu Changxing to say he could repair her foundational base. She was clearly aware that the heaven and earth treasures capable of fixing a foundational base were exceedingly rare. Furthermore, her foundation base was a perfect one, cracked due to flaws in her state of mind and cultivation technique, making it incredibly difficult to mend. But at that moment, as her foundational base pulsated within her body, undergoing transformation, she didn't give it much thought and simply nodded slightly, collecting her mental spirit and closed her eyes again to begin the marrow cleansing after the consolidation of the foundation base and her rebirth. Seeing Xiaoxia closing her eyes again, Lu Changxing started to regulate his breath in meditation, solidifying his cultivation level. At the time he had just had a breakthrough, and due to Xiaoxia's situation, he had been too preoccupied to solidify his cultivation level. So the cave dwelling returned to a state of silence. In the blink of an eye, half a month went by. Phew. Lu Changxing opened his eyes and exhaled lightly. Having solidified his cultivation level over half a month, he felt his aura become calm and settled. After his breakthrough to the foundation establishment stage, not only his cultivation level but also his physical body and presence had become more easily concealed. Unless he engaged in battle, it would be difficult for others to discern his level. Could this jade pendant be a unique treasure after all? That it can prevent even a foundation establishment cultivator from discerning the depth at a glance. As Lu Changxing observed his own aura, he discovered that the jade pendant given to him by that nascent soul female cultivator still had the effect of concealing his aura, to the point that he himself couldn't fully discern it. Now that I have established my foundation, if I wanted, I could probably go live off a woman's resources. Chapter 315. The idea of establishing one's own family. Lu Changxing chuckled inwardly. He remembered that after he achieved the foundation establishment stage, the nascent soul female cultivator had said she would give him an opportunity. Although she hadn't specified what the opportunity was, he could guess its nature. However, Lu Changxing had no such intentions in his heart. Lu Changxing had reached this point through his tireless efforts day and night. Why would he cling to someone's coattails or live off others? Moreover, he was aware that, as a nascent soul immortal, she would definitely not bear his children. In such a case, one couldn't be as comfortable as when at home with a wife and children around a warm stove. No, what's sweeter is living off one's own efforts step by step. System. Watching Xianxia still meditating with her eyes closed, Lu Changxing silently uttered in his mind. A system interface appeared before his eyes. Name, Lu Changxing. Status, son-in-law of the Lu family of Jianghu Mountain. Cultivation level, foundation establishment first layer. Lifespan, 32/269. Talent, 5th grade spiritual root. Gingjin body constitution, medium grade spiritual body. Cultivation techniques, 100 refinements treasure body art. 7 luminaries great freedom sword scripture. Yin-yang harmony technique, immortal beauty technique. Spells, 7 luminary sword light, 7 luminary sword shield, 7 luminary sword escape. Items, 9 treasure jade rui golden light brick talisman treasure, black dragon magical bead, book of malevolent curses and fates, life substituting talisman, profound origin bead 2nd rank puppet. Skills, talisman making 2nd rank, puppet 2nd rank, spirit slaughterer 2nd rank. Spiritual pets, 9 netherhound peach blossom goo, 6 winged golden silkworm. Offspring, 115 of 117. Lifespan has increased by 109 years. Is it because of the perfect foundation base? Lu Changxing examined the changes in his lifespan record. Normally, breaking through from energy refinement to foundation establishment increases one's lifespan by 100 years. This lifespan can fluctuate according to the cultivation method practiced or the condition of the body. For someone like him, practicing a sword scripture and having increased his lifespan by 109 years upon breaking through to foundation establishment, is already quite exceptional. At the age of 32, although not the pinnacle, foundation establishment is still the first step on the ladder. However, I should still keep my cultivation level hidden from the public eye as much as possible and bide my time for some years. Otherwise, as a mere 9th grade spiritual root son-in-law of the Lu family, having reached foundation establishment at 32, I will surely attract the wrong kind of attention and trouble. Lu Changxing murmured to himself, considering his current age. In the cultivation world, there's never a shortage of lucky ones who get an opportunity and manage to reach foundation establishment by chance. However, such lucky ones do not necessarily continue to be fortunate. Once his cultivation level is exposed, there's a high chance of attracting trouble. Therefore, unless necessary, Lu Changxing plans to maintain the appearance of an energy-refining cultivator. Regarding children, I've fallen behind over the years, I need to catch up earnestly now. Lu Changxing then turned his attention to his offspring record. In the last few years, due to various reasons such as outstanding childbirth and Xiaoxia's cultivation, childbearing was delayed, increasing the count by only 11 children. And my children are growing up and need to start cultivating, so I should really focus on that. Lu Changxing thought about his eldest son, Lu Xianxia, who had already completed taking in qi. Initially he had put some thought into Lu Xianxia. But as the number of children increased and he became busier, he barely provided guidance. For instance, he wouldn't have known about Lu Xianxia completing the qi intake if not for the system notification. With a thought, Lu Xianxi's information appeared. Name, Lu Xianxia, lifespan, December 89, talent, 9th grade spiritual root, cultivation level, qi refinement first layer, alas 9th grade spiritual root. Lu Changxing sighed softly upon seeing his son's spiritual root grade. As someone who had risen from a 9th grade to a 5th grade spiritual root, he understood the gap between the different grades of spiritual roots only too well. His son, without significant opportunities, had little chance past energy refinement late stage. But being my son is a great opportunity in itself. Once I possess the strength to establish my own family spirit land, with the heavenly longevity technique, even core formation or nascent soul stages are within reach. Lu Changxing exhaled lightly. He again considered the matter of establishing his own family. Having spent so many years on Jianghu Mountain, and with a wife and children, he certainly felt somewhat at home there. Indeed, he counted Jianghu Mountain as half his home. However, he never ceased to consider establishing his own cultivation family independently. After all, Lu Changxing never truly considered himself entirely a part of the Lu family. He merely saw Jianghu Mountain as half his home. Therefore, his children, as per his arrangements, hadn't completely integrated into the Lu family either. Because Lu Changxing was acutely aware that in the future he and his children were destined to walk a path different from the Lu families. If he remained with the Lu family, as his strength increased, he would probably become the Lu family ancestor and take control of the family. But Lu Changxing had no such wish. Becoming the Lu family ancestor and taking charge would mean assuming a responsibility. And he didn't want to shoulder that responsibility. His own children, he was willing to put in the effort, energy and resources to cultivate each one of them. Even if they had ninth-grade spiritual roots, he was willing to spend the time, energy and resources. But he couldn't possibly do the same for the Lu family disciples. And if he stayed with the Lu family, becoming their ancestor, he couldn't simply ignore family matters. So, in Lu Changsheng's view, taking his children to establish their own family clan was the best choice. He wouldn't forget about the Lu family either. Once capable, he would provide whatever assistance he could afford to help them. After all, a favor of a drop of water should be repaid with a spring of water. Moreover, considering his current relationship with the Lu family, it was impossible for him to sever ties completely. Chapter 316, Family Spirit Land Repair the Tao Foundation. _1. Now that I've achieved foundation establishment, I can consider establishing a family clan. Lu Changsheng's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts about establishing a family clan. In the world of cultivation, the strength of foundation establishment couldn't be considered very high. However, it was enough to preside over a region and establish a cultivation family. As with the Lu family of Jianghu Mountain and many surrounding families, once foundation establishment was achieved, one would become the ancestral elder of the family. To establish a cultivation family, the first thing needed is a spiritual vein-blessed land. Without a spirit land, talking about establishing a family is nothing but a joke. Over the years, Lu Changsheng had learned quite a bit about family affairs. He knew a few basic ways to acquire a spirit land. The first method was the simplest and most direct. It was to seize and occupy other spirit lands by force. This kind of thing was not uncommon in the cultivation world. However, few who chose to establish family forces did so. One reason was, if not done thoroughly, it left the possibility of future troubles. Another was that seizing spirit lands without cause and establishing a family greatly affected one's reputation and credibility. And morally it was indefensible, easily drawing the condemnation and even aggression from other cultivators and forces. After all, if you are alone you can disregard the rules. But when you establish a family and have dependents, you need to consider your reputation and the family's standing. If you act without rules and are too overbearing, leading to a poor reputation, it's not only likely to cause trouble, but also could result in other cultivators and family forces being unwilling to associate with you. In the cultivation world, most who choose to establish family forces do so because they have no hope in cultivation. Therefore, they transfer their time and energy to cultivating successors, aiming for the stable development of the family's foundation. If a family force is established through forceful occupation and as a result gains a bad reputation, it is bound to hinder the family's development. For instance, when the Lu family and the Bai family attacked Red Leaf Valley, they had a justified cause, holding grievances that stretched over decades. The Yu family and the Zheng family would also find a reason or pretext when they came to take their share. Therefore, seizing other spirit lands by force was not considered by Lu Changsheng. He couldn't bring himself to seize other spirit lands without reason. Of course, if any thoughtless family offended him and forced his hand, he wouldn't mind doing so. The second way to obtain a spirit land was to clear and develop it oneself. Although spirit veins were scarce in the cultivation world, it was still possible to find some unclaimed ones. However, most such spirit veins were located in places with poor terrain or harsh environments, where they were surrounded by numerous and very dangerous demon beasts. So if one was willing to spend time and effort, it was still possible to find a spirit vein and cultivate it into a spirit land. But this option too was not considered by Lu Changsheng. First of all, he had a general idea about the future development of his family. With his puppets, talisman making, spirit slaughterer, and skills obtained from future draws, he intended to train his children in artisanal trades. By mastering these skills, his family would have a stable source of income. Therefore, he had certain requirements for the geographical environment. If the environment was too remote or too poor, and there were too few cultivators and marketplaces around, it would definitely be inconvenient for doing business. Secondly, to find a suitable spirit vein and to develop it into a spirit land would also require a great deal of time and effort. It could take many years or even decades. So this path was completely out of Lu Changsheng's consideration. The third way was to purchase or rent a spirit land with money. Some cultivation families, facing decline or a break in lineage, would choose to sell or almost give away their family spirit lands. However, such spirit lands were usually not of high quality. If Lu Changxing were willing, he could easily take over a first-grade spirit vein. But to cultivate a first-grade spirit vein into a second grade would consume too much time and resources, so it was not considered by Lu Changxing. Immortal sects like Heavenly Sword Sect, Qingyun Sect, Wuxia Sect, and Spirit Taming Sect all had several second-grade spiritual vein dojos with excellent environment and geographical location. These spirit lands, besides being used to establish cultivation marketplaces, also had some available for rent or sale. If I could purchase a spirit land within the jurisdiction of Qingyun Sect, that would be a fine choice. However, most of these spiritual vein dojos are only rented out, seldom sold. Even when they are up for sale, not everyone is qualified to buy them. Moreover, the price of a spiritual vein dojo is astronomically high, beyond what I can currently afford. Lu Changxing shook his head slightly, not dwelling on this matter. With his current worth, it wasn't easy to establish a family clan from nothing. After all, a family clan is something that accumulates over generations. If he wanted to complete in a short time what others have achieved over several generations, it would naturally cost him exponentially more. However, he wasn't in a hurry to establish a family clan. He planned to wait until his children were older. The most urgent task at hand is to accumulate a foundation. In a few years, when I can reasonably reveal my strength at foundation establishment, I'll consider the matter of establishing a family clan. By that time, my 100 or so children should have grown up and will be able to share the burdens of this old father. Otherwise, even with a family spirit land and the establishment of my own family, I would be faced with a lack of manpower and would need to do everything personally. Lu Changxing was very clear in his heart. To establish a family clan, a spirit land was only the basic condition. With the spirit land secured, one would at least need a family-grade formation, right? Such large-scale formations couldn't be managed with just a set of formation tools. Chapter 317, Family Spirit Land. Repair the Tao Foundation. An array master is necessary for the setup. As for the great formation of his own family, Lu Changxing truly did not feel assured to let others handle its arrangement. Moreover, such large-scale formations, even ordinary second-rank formations, are exceedingly expensive. With the formation's protection, it's necessary to sort the earth veins, develop the spirit fields and the medicinal fields. Then planting the spiritual medicines in the spirit fields, the envisioned puppet factory, nurturing spiritual beasts, all require substantial financial investment and people to do the work. It's feasible to recruit outsiders, servants, to work. But core matters must be kept in the hands of our own people. At present, aside from his wives and concubines, his eldest son, Lu Pinggan, is only 13 years old. And since Lu Pinggan does not have a spiritual root, he cannot do many things, which must be done only by offspring with spiritual roots. Lu Changxing was very clear about all this in his heart. He knew that establishing a family from nothing, regardless of the cost or human and mental effort, would be tremendous and require extensive preparation. Even with a system at his disposal, it wouldn't be easy for one person to traverse in a few years or over a decade what others take over 100 years to accomplish. However, had it not been for the blessings of many children granted by the system, Lu Changxing would not have even thought about establishing a family. After all, creating a family is like planting trees for future generations to enjoy the shade. In the early stages, it's all toil with little return. Moreover, most often, the founders don't live to see the benefits and conveniences of the family. However, for me it's just about getting through the initial stage, he said to himself. After all, as long as the children are well, this father will be content. Once the family gets on the right track and carries on from generation to generation, this old father, this ancestor, can also relax and live leisurely. Lu Changxing was also aware that he differed from other family founders. Most of them turned to building a family only when they saw no hope in cultivation. Whereas his focus was on stability and a promising future where every effort would be rewarded. At this moment, Lu Changxing turned to look at Xianxia, whose eyelashes trembled slightly as her eyes slowly opened. He immediately asked with concern, "Xiyu, you're awake." Changxing. Xianxia had a breakthrough in her foundation establishment, completing a metamorphosis. Her skin, previously as pure as ice and snow, now seemed to flow with faint moonlight, making her entire person appear even more coldly sacred and pure. Supreme Forgetful Love Technique, First Level, Yun Wuqing Yuer Wuqing. Looking at Lu Changxing in front of her, Xianxia had complicated feelings. Initially she thought that Yun stood for men and Yu for women. Clouds and moon sit millions of miles apart, unrelated to each other, so clouds are heartless and so is the moon. But her master, Yun Wanshang, told her that clouds carry the light of the moon and cast the reflection of colorful clouds on the earth. To those on earth, it seemed as if the moon rested in the clouds, with the clouds embracing the moon, coexisting in interdependence. Thus, supreme forgetful love means one must experience emotion to reach heartlessness. However, with her breakthrough in the supreme forgetful love technique, she gained new insight. Clouds and moon intertwined, with the clouds surrounding the moon and the moon illuminating the clouds, both distant and close. One cold and quiet, the other ethereal and unpredictable, both heartless by nature. Hence cloud heartless, moon heartless. It turns out I was wrong from the beginning and so was Master, Xianxia murmured to herself. From the start of their cultivation, both she and Lu Changxing had no emotions. That is, they had desire but no feelings, aligning with the state of cloud heartless, moon heartless. But as her cultivation progressed, she became increasingly entangled, possessed by both desire and emotions. Although it was a mistake, she also knew that supreme forgetful love, in the end, is all about being heartless without emotions, cutting away those threads of sentiment. So, when together with Lu Changxing they had both desire and emotion. When alone, she would cultivate the supreme forgetful love technique to achieve a state of no desire, no emotions. Yet during the impact of foundation establishment, she was ultimately unable to sever her emotions completely and achieve heartlessness. But because Lu Changxing was by her side, she had both desire and emotions when it mattered, and in the end she succeeded in her foundation establishment, though her Tao foundation was damaged. So what does the second level mean with its cloud has sentiment, and moon has sentiment? Xianxia thought about the state of mind necessary for the second level of the supreme forgetful love technique. This related to whether she could reach core formation. Although her Tao foundation was damaged, with cracks making core formation seem distant, she was not going to give up on herself. Shiyu, how are you feeling? Are you alright? Lu Changxing looked at Xianxia, who had just opened her eyes, then stared blankly at him, and he inquired. I'm fine, Xianxia replied, shaking her head lightly. She could feel that whenever she faced Lu Changxing, her state of mind couldn't truly achieve calmness, supreme forgetful love. Then, with a wave of her hand, she clothed herself in moon-white lingerie, undergarments, and a skirt. Despite their intimacy. But the thought of her own breakthrough process, having been undressed the entire time, made Xianxia somewhat shy. Shiyu, now that you're fine, let's see if I can repair your Tao foundation, Lu Changxing said, looking at Xianxia, who had donned her skirt, her long hair casually falling down to her waist, the contrast of black and white naturally bearing a celestial essence without any pretense. Repair Tao foundation? Xianxia looked towards Lu Changxing, still somewhat incredulous. After all, such a notion was astounding. Yes, the Tao foundation I gathered during foundation establishment is called the Yin-Yang Five Elements Foundation Base, and this Yin-Yang Qi. Lu Changxing did not conceal anything and revealed the effect of his Tao foundation to Xianxia. Upon hearing this, Xiaoxia's beautiful eyes showed a hint of surprise, seemingly astonished that such a foundation base existed. At the same time, her creamy cheeks instantly flushed a shade of red. She had read many books about foundation establishment. She knew about many perfect foundations. But she had never heard of such a foundation as Lu Changxing's. Putting aside the fact that the effects of this foundation were too extraordinary, the method of repairing the foundation, which required dual cultivation, made her feel as if Lu Changxing was pulling a fast one on her. Shiyu, don't you trust me? Looking at Xiaoxia's silence, her cold eyes displaying a touch of disbelief, Lu Changxing immediately spoke up. Chapter 318, Family Spirit Land, Repair the Tao Foundation. I naturally trust you, Xiaoxia said softly, her luscious lips gently pressing together. Though she said so, her heart still harbored doubts about such effects on the Tao Foundation. However, thinking that she would soon return to Qingyun's sect, she sighed softly and complied with Lu Changxing's request. Lu Changxing could tell that Xiaoxia still had some disbelief. He immediately wanted to prove through his actions that he, Lu Changxing, was a man of integrity. He would not fabricate such a lie just out of lust. Soon, a rustling sound emerged, accompanied by a soft, cold whimper. The symphony of a grand life harmony began to play. Who knows how much time had passed? Huff. As the yin-yang energies entered Xiaoxia's body, Lu Changxing let out a long breath. He embraced the sweat-drenched Xianxia and extended his divine sense into her body, to see how the yin-yang energies were repairing and purifying the Tao Foundation. After all, he knew of it, but this was his first attempt. Moreover, Xiaoxia's situation was somewhat unique. He saw the yin-yang energies transform into a yin-yang fish, entering Xiaoxia's Qi-ocean core. They swirled around her supreme yin profound moon Tao Foundation. During the process, a faint yin-yang qi diffused over the cracks of the Tao platform. Xiyu, how is it, do you feel any effect? Lu Changxing asked after observing for a while. He could tell that the yin-yang energy should be repairing and purifying the Tao Foundation, but there were no apparent changes to the cracks on the platform. He could not discern whether the Tao platform was benefiting from the yin-yang energy's purification. Xiaoxia propped up her soft, powerless body with some effort, her porcelain skin flushed with a hint of pink. With her hand gently caressing her slightly swollen lower abdomen, she closed her eyes to sense the changes in her Tao platform. In this moment she could clearly feel that under the nourishment of these yin-yang energies, her Tao platform was indeed being repaired. What astonished her even more was that these yin-yang energies resonated with her supreme yin profound moon Tao Foundation, giving her the faint sense that, with enough yin-yang energies, not only would her Tao Foundation be repaired but it might also undergo some kind of transformation. Changxing. The effect of these yin-yang energies made Xiaoxia's heart flutter. Her stunning face lifted to look at Lu Changxing at a loss for words for a moment. With a gap in her Tao heart, her Tao Foundation was damaged, leaving her inner world not at peace. Now, seeing that her Tao Foundation could indeed be repaired and perhaps even further improved, her heart was tumultuous with emotion. Xiyu, how is it, I didn't deceive you, did I? Seeing Xiaoxia's reaction, Lu Changxing immediately knew the yin-yang energies were effective. He snorted lightly, slightly annoyed, and pinched her delicate skin playfully. He could see that Xiaoxia hadn't really believed he could repair the Tao Foundation before. Lu Lang, Xiyu was wrong, Xiaoxia voiced sweetly, her eyes brimming with moisture as she nestled against Lu Changxing's chest. She was a little less aloof and a little more fragile. Normally, her use of the supreme forgetful love technique allowed her to maintain a tranquil mind, undisturbed by emotions. But their recent dual cultivation had nearly nullified the supreme forgetful love technique. And she didn't operate the technique to suppress her emotions. She even prevented the supreme forgetful love technique from activating automatically. It was as if she had a subtle revelation about the second layer of the supreme forgetful love technique. Clouds have affections, the moon holds affection. The moon, accompanied by the clouds, shone even more brightly. The clouds, illuminated by the moon, appeared even more vibrant and graceful. If she stood on the ground and looked up, admiring how the two complemented each other, it would result in the creation of a beautiful scenery, just like a painting of the clear blue sky. It's good that you understand your mistake. How do you think this effect is? Approximately how many times will it take to repair the cracks in your Tao Foundation? Lu Changxing, using his divine sense to observe, could tell that this kind of thing wasn't going to be fixed in 1 or 2 tries, it's going to take several sessions. Possibly dozens of times? Xiaoxia's cheeks were slightly flushed as she gave an estimate. Thinking of this number meant accepting the number of times she'd have to engage in dual cultivation with Lu Changxing, which made her hang her head in shyness. She had actually been planning to return to the Qingyun sect. But how could she return if she had to repair her Tao Foundation? Dozens of times? Upon hearing this, Lu Changxing's eyebrows raised slightly. The yin-yang energies he possessed were not simply mana, but the essence of the human body. After each use they had to be slowly replenished through cultivation. The yin-yang energies he had just expended would likely take about 10 days to a half-month to recuperate. If it was going to take 50 times for Xiaoxia's foundation to be restored, it meant that it would take about 1 to 2 years. For cultivators, 1 to 2 years to repair a crack in the foundation is naturally not considered a long time. Changxing, your yin-yang energies not only repair the Tao Foundation but also resonate with mine. Xiaoxia continued to speak. She discussed the effects of the yin-yang energies on her foundation. There's such an effect? Lu Changxing was also somewhat surprised. He really didn't know that his yin-yang energies had such an effect. If his yin-yang energies could further improve a perfect foundation, that would be too heaven-defying. Wait a minute, could this effect be because, at the time my 7 Lamps Foundation advanced to the yin-yang 5 Elements Foundation, it merged with Shiyu's Great Yin Moon Essence? After all, this Great Yin Moon Essence and Xiyu share the same origin, so maybe that's why my yin-yang energies have an extra effect on Shiyu's foundation. Lu Changxing speculated in his mind. He felt that if it could also upgrade a perfect foundation, it would be too heaven-defying. He then shared his speculation with Xianxia. Xianxia was also somewhat astonished after hearing this. She hadn't expected that Lu Changsheng's yin-yang energies were formed by her own great Yi-moon essence and the great sun essence. However, she was also unclear about this situation. After all, her understanding of foundations was limited. Xiyu, approximately how many times before your foundation can undergo a transformation? Lu Changsheng asked again. I don't know either. Xianxia shook her head gently. She could only feel the resonance of the yin-yang energies in the process of repairing her foundation. It made her feel that under the nourishment of the yin-yang energies, her foundation would undergo a certain change. No worries, with persistent effort even an iron rod can be ground to a needle. Xiyu, rest assured, I will definitely repair your foundation and help you take it a step further. Lu Changsheng spoke with deep affection, his tone growing firmer and more sincere. Xianxia, with Lu Changsheng's gesture, lifted her chin slightly, her cheeks blushing, and softly hummed in approval. By the way, Xiyu, I have a cultivation technique that's not only beneficial for cultivation but might also be useful for repairing the foundation. Lu Changsheng thought of his tender embrace technique and mentioned it to Xianxia. He also wanted to try out another effect of his foundation. Chapter 319. If you feel bad about it, have a few children under one. Several days later the sky cleared up and the rain ceased. Poof, Lu Changsheng flipped over and rose to his feet. He took out 3 elixir medicines and swallowed them. Holding 2 spirit stones in his hand, he sat cross-legged in cultivation, absorbing and devouring copious amounts of pure spiritual energy. In the next moment, within the sea of qi in his dantian, a drop of liquid mana formed, resembling 7-colored glazed glass. It merged into the multicolored Dan Lake, making the Dan Lake ripple gently, growing slightly in size. Phew, this effect is simply astonishing. But it seems the dual cultivation with Xiyu also has an enhancing effect. Lu Changsheng was somewhat astonished and amazed just to have condensed a drop of liquid mana by himself. From qi refinement to the breakthrough of foundation establishment, he had condensed a total of 100 drops of liquid mana within his Dan Lake. Once the total amount of liquid mana reached 150 drops, he could attempt the second level of foundation establishment. Lu Changsheng had not expected that just a few days of dual cultivation with Xianxia would directly condense a drop of liquid mana. This speed was truly astonishing. Based on my current speed of cultivation, it takes roughly 2 months to condense a single drop of liquid mana. So these days of dual cultivation are about the same as 2 months of arduous cultivation for me? Lu Changsheng calculated in his heart. Previously, his days of dual cultivation with Lu Miaoge amounted to at most half a month's worth of arduous cultivation. But with Xianxia, it was comparable to 2 full months of arduous cultivation. This led Lu Changsheng to speculate that it wasn't just the yin-yang 5 elements foundation base that enhanced dual cultivation. It was also the added benefit from dual cultivating with Xianxia. However, he wasn't greedy. The mana cultivated in this manner ultimately wasn't as consolidated as that which he cultivated steadily and methodically. It required time to stabilize. Otherwise, it would result in a weak foundation. So it was something to indulge in occasionally, a fun activity between husband and wife cultivators. But now that I'm at foundation establishment, I can condense the 7 luminaries heart lamp, which not only purges elixir toxicity and guards my mental spirit, but also has the effect of burning nature's spiritual energy, speeding up cultivation, solidifying mana, and strengthening my foundation. So occasionally indulging a little shouldn't be a problem. Lu Changsheng also thought about the 7 luminaries heart lamp he had been yearning for. This heart lamp not only aided in cultivation but also possessed combat capabilities. It could enhance his combat power at the foundation establishment stage. Sigh. At that moment, Xianxia also opened her eyes from her meditation, and her clear beautiful eyes overflowed with tender affection as they looked towards Lu Changsheng. The tender embrace technique was certainly not an energy drain technique. It was a superior dual cultivation technique. Not only beneficial for Lu Changsheng but also for Xianxia. Especially the past several days of dual cultivation, which allowed Xianxia to gain a deeper understanding of the second level of supreme forgetful love technique. Clouds have emotions, moon has emotions. Xiyu, have I broken your supreme forgetful love technique again? Lu Changsheng looked at Xianxia, whose face was full of gentle love, took her into his arms and teasingly said. He also knew that Xiaoxia's supreme forgetful love technique would make the practitioner emotionless and indifferent as they cultivated further into it. Even though he didn't want her to end up like that, seeing that Xiaoxia regained her bright and soft demeanor after breaking through foundation establishment, he couldn't help feeling worried. Worried that, besides her Dao foundation, some other problems arose in her cultivation. Yes, in front of Lu Lang, how can Xiyu adhere to supreme forgetfulness? Xiaoxia spoke faintly. Yet a hint of deep affection shimmered in her eyes. It was exactly this thread of affection that had compromised her Dao foundation. And after completing foundation establishment, as the two of them continued to dual cultivate, this thread of affection began to spread anew within her heart. She did not suppress these feelings, allowing them to spread and ferment. Lu Changxing noticed Xiaoxia's demeanor and knew that she should be all right. Immediately, he pinched her cheek and chuckled. In that case, does Xiyu have to cultivate by my side for a lifetime? Yes, if Xiyu can never break through supreme forgetfulness, then he'll have to cultivate by Lu Lang's side for a lifetime, Xiaoxia playfully responded in a seemingly light-hearted manner. But her heart skipped a beat. Understanding that if the second layer of supreme forgetful love technique, clouds have emotions, moon has emotions, is as she surmised, then breaking through this layer and advancing further would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Although she harbored feelings for Lu Changxing, she also couldn't let go of her aspiration towards the Tao. Since Xiyu feels this way, then it's fine not to cultivate that supreme forgetfulness, Lu Changxing stated. Although the supreme forgetful love technique is powerful, he saw its side effects as too significant. Hearing this, Xiaoxia's eyes lowered, and her lips quivered as she bit her lip. For a moment she fell silent. The supreme forgetful love technique was not like other cultivation techniques that could be readily changed. Especially now that she had broken through to foundation establishment, to switch her practice would mean starting all over from scratch. And she was unwilling to give up this supreme forgetful love technique. Because it was only through cultivating this technique that she might be able to travel farther on the path of immortality and see a broader world. I was just saying it casually, Xiyu, don't take it to heart. Besides, I believe that there are always ways to have the best of both worlds, Lu Changxing said, seeing Xiaoxia in such a state, and spoke gently. He knew techniques like the supreme forgetful love technique represented the foundation of the Tao for Xiaoxia, and his words had clearly put Xiaoxia in a difficult position of choosing between her emotions and cultivation. This understanding made him empathetic, and he did not wish to pressure her, believing that in the future he would find a way that could accommodate both. Changxing. I'm sorry, Xiaoxia said softly, her voice trembling slightly. Not only did she love Lu Changxing, but she also felt a profound sense of guilt towards him. The more understanding and accommodating Lu Changxing was, the guiltier she felt. Because she was acutely aware that her affection for Lu Changxing was not pure, and now it also encompassed the intention to use his cultivation for her own benefit. In such circumstances, Lu Changxing continued to support her, providing foundation establishment elixirs and helping repair and refine her Tao foundation without seeking anything in return. Her guilt weighed heavily on her. Chapter 320. If you feel bad about it, have a few children, there's no need for apologies between us. If you truly feel uneasy in your heart, Xiyu, and one day you manage to break through the supreme level of detachment and have to leave, then have a few children for me. As a remembrance of our relationship, let me look upon the children and be reminded of you. Lu Changxing said this half-jokingly. Have children? When Xiaoxia heard these words, her heart trembled slightly, she became briefly lost in thought, and her face revealed a blush of shyness. Having spent so much time with Lu Changxing, she naturally knew how fond he was of children. But she had never considered the matter of having children. Or rather, most cultivators, unless they see no hope in their path of cultivation, even if they have partners, do not think about having children. Especially someone like Xiaoxia, who was at the prime age for vigorous advancement in cultivation, with a bright future ahead, would think even less about having children. Now that Lu Changxing had brought it up, Xiaoxia couldn't help but genuinely ponder the idea. She thought about having a child for Lu Changxing. That way when she left, someone would still be there to keep him company. But the thought of childbirth scared her inexplicably. She remembered hearing as a child that childbirth was like passing through the gates of hell. She also thought about how, if she had a child and she wasn't around, the child would be motherless and might be bullied by others. For a moment, Xiaoxia's heart raced and her thoughts were in turmoil. Xiyu, what are you thinking about? You're not considering what we're going to name our kids in the future, are you? Seeing Xiaoxia's blush and her thoughtful, conflicted expression, Lu Changxing laughed softly. Although he suggested that Xiaoxia have children, it was mostly a preventive measure, tilting more towards a joke. After all, she does have a core formation master. He dared not truly plan to cajole someone else's disciple into having children. Humph, who said I would have children for you? Xiaoxia looked at Lu Changxing's teasing, half-smiling expression, spat lightly and showed a bit of girlish moodiness. She pounded her little fist on Lu Changxing's chest, saying one thing while meaning another. Watching the fairy behave in such a manner, Lu Changxing shouted, "I-oh" in amusement. Then the two of them were affectionate for a while. "Shiyu, I plan to buy some items in the Qingyun market and then return to Qingzhou Mountain. Are you going back to the Red Leaf Valley market with me or?" Lu Changxing asked. Cultivating together with Xiaoxia in the Qingyun market, life was undoubtedly pleasant. But after all, he had a family. At home there were a bunch of wives and children. This trip had already lasted over 5 months. Having not returned for such a long time, and now that his foundation establishment was complete, he naturally had to go back. So, he thought of purchasing materials for crafting the 7 luminaries heart lamp in the Qingyun market before heading back to Qingzhou Mountain or the Red Leaf Valley market. "Changxing, I've been away for quite a long time on this trip, and now that I've succeeded in foundation establishment, I should also make a trip back. I will come to find you afterward, Shiyu." Upon hearing this, Xiaoxia said softly. Having been on her cultivation journey for a while and now that she had succeeded in foundation establishment, she needed to go back to report and inform her master. "All right, when you do, just come directly to Qingzhou Mountain or the Red Leaf Valley market and contact me." Lu Changxing nodded in agreement. The two of them did not linger. They packed up their things, cleaned out the cave dwelling and prepared to leave. As he left the cave, Lu Changxing put on his mask artifact once again, reverting to the disguised appearance he had before. This mask was no longer the lower-grade magical instrument he had initially bought, the 100 Changes mask. It was a higher-grade magical instrument with a similar effect. Once disguised, unless faced with a foundation establishment cultivator using a special technique or divine skills for seeing through illusions, it was usually impenetrable. Xiaoxia, however, did not disguise herself. When she rented the cave dwelling with a token, she had already revealed her identity. And her situation was different from Lu Changxing's. She had no such concerns. The two of them opened the cave dwelling and were ready to go downhill to the rental office to return it. At a distance, a young man noticed that Xiaoxia's cave dwelling opened with a boom. He immediately got up, his face full of joy as he came forward to congratulate her. But when he saw Xiaoxia walking out of the cave closely with an ordinary-looking young man, his body suddenly stiffened, and his previously smiling face turned extremely unsightly. "Meng brother?" At this moment Xiaoxia also saw the young man and was somewhat surprised. "I heard that Shiyu was here attempting foundation establishment, so I came to congratulate you." Meng Yibai, with his face looking a bit gloomy and unpleased, said. After speaking, he transformed into a streak of escape light and left, entering a nearby meaning second character cave dwelling. He knew Xiaoxia was renting a cave dwelling to attempt foundation establishment and thus stayed outside waiting after he noticed the anomaly in nature's spiritual energy. He had hoped to immediately congratulate her upon her exit to win the affection of a beautiful person. For this he even prepared a special gift. But he never expected that Xiaoxia would walk out with a man, and that the two of them would show such intimate behavior, looking very much like a couple. He had guessed from the anomaly in nature's spiritual energy that there might be 2 people in the cave trying for foundation establishment. But he had not considered the possibility of the other being a man. After all, Xiaoxia was known in the Qingyun sect as Fairy Shiyu, famous for her aloofness and pride. She rarely interacted with people, let alone men. And yet, the usually cold and dignified Fairy Shiyu was now showing a gentle smile and affectionate behavior towards a man. Thinking about the two of them attempting foundation establishment together and staying in the dwelling for months, Meng Yibai felt sick to his stomach. Slut. The more Meng Yibai thought about it, the angrier he became, punching the cave's wall in frustration and grinding his teeth in resentment. "I thought she was so cold and aloof, but now it seems she's nothing special. Who is this person, and why don't I remember such a person in our sect?" Meng Yibai, thinking of Lu Changxing's appearance, had eyes filled with intense murderous intent. Chapter 321. If you feel bad about it, have a few children already proud and arrogant. He couldn't swallow the affront he encountered at that moment. As for Xianxia, he didn't dare to offend her, so he immediately shifted all the blame onto Lu Changxing. This person's name is Meng Yibai, the grandson of a false core immortal from our sect. It seems he came over upon hearing about my foundation establishment in the marketplace, to offer his congratulations. Xianxia watched Meng Yibai leave with an unsightly expression, and to prevent Lu Changxing from misunderstanding, she explained softly. This person must have some pursuit towards Xiyu. Otherwise, his face wouldn't look so troubled. Lu Changxing chuckled and said. He thought it was fortunate that he had disguised himself. Otherwise, he might have incurred someone's resentment just because of this. After all, the trouble brought by beauty is something no one can be certain of. Xianxia nodded slightly in agreement. Although she practiced the great art of forgetting emotions, which made her emotions detached, she was not ignorant of human relationships and worldly affairs. Naturally, she also knew the other party had such intentions. If the disciples of the Qingyun sect found out that Fairy Xiyu was pursued and won over by me, wouldn't I be chased to the ends of the earth? Lu Changxing joked. He was not jealous because of this. If Xianxia had no suitors in the Qingyun sect, he wouldn't believe it himself. Just like in the Nine Dragons market, Lu Miaoga had many suitors. But in the end it was he, Lu, who had more charm and won the Bowtie's favor. It's not that exaggerated. Upon hearing his words, the corners of Xiaoxia's mouth lifted upwards. A hint of joy bubbled up in her heart. Immediately afterward, the two arrived at their cave-dwelling rental. When the caretaker Han saw Xianxia and Lu Changxing come, judging by their appearances and auras, he knew that they had both succeeded in their foundation establishment. One sign was the anomaly of the nature's spiritual energy vortex earlier, which indicated successful foundation establishment. The other sign was that, if foundation establishment failed, even with foundation establishment elixirs, one's energy would be weak and disordered in the short term. But Xianxia and Lu Changxing had mana that showed no signs of weakness or disorder, deep and profound like an ocean, which made him feel it was unfathomable. Congratulations to Xiao Shishu on successful foundation establishment, and to this senior on successful foundation establishment. May your path to the great Tao be promising. Caretaker Han immediately bowed deeply. Now that Xianxia had achieved foundation establishment, her status had naturally risen. Before, he was able to call her junior sister, due to joining the sect earlier and being older. Now he naturally had to address her as Shishu, and refer to Lu Changxing as senior. Xiao Shishu, when you were undertaking foundation establishment, Immortal Du and Meng Yibai Meng Shishu came here and asked about you. Immortal Du, upon knowing you were attempting foundation establishment, instructed that no one should disturb you, Caretaker Han continued, taking the opportunity to remind her. Though this matter wasn't something big, he felt it was still necessary to inform Xianxia. After all, she was not only a disciple of a nascent soul immortal but had also achieved foundation establishment. If she could leave a good impression, it might be beneficial for her future. Upon hearing this, Xianxia nodded slightly. She had already seen Meng Yibai just now. As for Immortal Du, she knew he was a false core immortal presiding over the Qingyun market. The fact that he ordered not to disturb her was clearly a show of goodwill. Thank you, Brother Han. Xianxia bowed slightly in response. She naturally knew that in the Qingyun sect, one's status greatly increased upon breaking through to the foundation establishment stage. A Qi refinement disciple must address a foundation establishment disciple as Shishu. However, she was not accustomed to such a title yet, especially since Caretaker Han was 20 to 30 years her senior. This Fairy Xiyu and this person seemed to have an extraordinary relationship. Not only did they establish their foundations together, but they also stayed in the cave dwelling for so long. After Xianxia and Lu Changxing left, Caretaker Han was inwardly shocked. He had felt before that the relationship between Lu Changxing and Xianxia was not ordinary. This was why he mentioned not only Immortal Du but also Meng Yibai. After all, young Master Meng was not one with a good temper. If he saw the close relationship between Lu Changxing and Xianxia, he might cause trouble. But what does it have to do with me? Caretaker Han shook his head, deciding not to think further. Having managed affairs for so many years, he knew that there were things one shouldn't be curious about if it wasn't necessary. Changxing, that Immortal Du is an elder of our sect. Since I've come to the market to break through foundation establishment, it's only right for me to pay a visit in both sentiment and etiquette, Xianxia said to Lu Changxing. If she hadn't known about it, it wouldn't matter. But now that she was aware of Immortal due and he knew of her visit, it would be inappropriate not to pay a visit. Alright, you go ahead. I happen to need to buy some things as well. Lu Changxing smiled and nodded, indicating that after he finished his shopping, he would head straight back to Jianghu Mountain. Xianxia returned to her usual cool demeanor, showing a hint of tenderness. Chapter 322, The Army of Golden Armor Warriors, The Way to Enter Qingyun Sect _1. After arriving in the inner city, Lu Changxing didn't go directly to purchase or deal with his belongings. Instead, he found a large inn, checked into a room and changed into a different disguise. After all, having spent so long in Nine Dragons Market, he had experience with this and wanted to avoid attracting attention. At this time, Lu Changxing also remembered the golden armor bean mother in his system space. Since he had been with Xianxia, he hadn't taken it out. Extract. Lu Changxing opened the system space, his mental spirit flickered slightly. Immediately, a golden bean the size of an egg appeared in front of him. At the same time, detailed information about the golden armor bean mother emerged in Lu Changxing's mind. The golden armor bean mother could transform into a second-rank golden armor warrior or be used for planting and breeding spirit beans. The information about this golden armor warrior was close to what he had speculated before. It was somewhat similar to a puppet and a demon beast. Or rather, it was something in between a puppet and a demon beast. It had slightly more autonomy than a puppet. It didn't require divine sense to control and could follow simple commands. But compared to demon beasts, it had less autonomy. It could only do as commanded and lacked the ability to adapt spontaneously. But this golden armor warrior didn't consume spirit stones like a puppet, nor did it require food and drink like a demon beast. It could absorb and store spiritual energy on its own, and when completely depleted, could recover slowly if placed in spiritual earth. This golden armor bean mother's transformed golden armor warrior has the strength of the late second rank. Even if its autonomy is low and it doesn't have many techniques or divine skills, it's still comparable to a top-level second-rank puppet. It shouldn't be a problem facing medium-stage foundation establishment cultivators. Lu Changxing had an approximate understanding of the golden armor bean mother's combat capability. The combat capability was quite straightforward, geared towards close combat and acting as a meat shield. Similar to a puppet, ordinary foundation establishment cultivators would struggle to withstand its full-force attacks. However, as I suspected, the primary function of this golden armor bean mother lies in its ability to be planted and cultivated. A faint smile appeared on Lu Changxing's face, understanding the planting and breeding aspect of the golden armor bean mother. It takes 3 years to sprout, 3 years to grow leaves, 3 years to blossom and 3 years to bear pods. In other words, it can complete a reproduction cycle and bear fruit every 12 years. Each time, it can yield 5 to 10 golden armor spirit beans. All these golden armor spirit beans can transform into golden armor warriors, although they are not as powerful as the golden armor bean mother. They only possess the strength of the late first rank, roughly equivalent to a high-grade first-rank puppet. A 12-year cycle is a bit long. Moreover, these golden armor spirit beans can't be planted and bred like the golden armor bean mother. Otherwise, if I could continuously breed more from the beans, I could establish an entire army of golden armor warriors. Lu Changxing felt a tinge of regret in his heart. When he first obtained second-rank puppet techniques, he envisioned creating an army of puppets to execute the puppet C technique. However, due to the high cost of creating puppets and the need for personal control, he had to abandon the idea. But these golden armor spirit beans could be planted, and he could have them do tasks with just simple commands, rekindling his interest in this approach. Alas, these golden armor spirit beans also had their flaws. Unless necessary, I should avoid using the golden armor bean mother for combat. Otherwise, if it gets damaged or develops problems and can't blossom and bear fruit, that would be a major loss. After all, the golden armor warriors produced from these golden armor spirit beans are extremely convenient for combat, tilling spiritual earth, forging puppet parts, or any simple miscellaneous tasks. They require no human manipulation, no food or drink, no rest, and as long as they have enough spiritual power, they can work endlessly. When their spiritual power is exhausted or they suffer from wear and tear, provided it is not too severe, they can recover if buried in spiritual earth. Lu Changxing muttered to himself, realizing that for him, The golden armor being mother was not to be used for transforming into a golden armor warrior for combat, but rather to continually reproduce a labor force. In the future, when he established his own family, many tasks such as the envisioned puppet factory could be entrusted to the golden armor warriors produced by the spirit beings. I wonder if I will be able to draw something like the golden armor being mother again. Lu Changxing became even more interested in such Dao soldiers, and decided to check the bookstores in Qingyun Market later for information about Dao soldiers. After putting the golden armor being mother into his spiritual pet bag, Lu Changxing left the inn. He first visited 2 magic artifact shops and traded the artifacts he didn't need for spirit stones. In total, there were 4 supreme artifacts and 3 upper-grade artifacts. The quality of these artifacts was still quite good, and since they weren't used much, he sold them for 6,300 spirit stones. As for the 3 spiritual artifacts he acquired from the young man in the red robe, Lu Changxing chose not to sell them. Now that he had reached foundation establishment, it was only natural that he updated his artifacts. The other party's colorless flying sword was quite good, being a middle-grade spiritual artifact, so he kept it for his own use. Although the blood-colored scissors were somewhat worn, they were still usable. As for the red phoenix pearl, since it was the other party's life-bound spiritual artifact, its power would be significantly reduced if he used it, but considering it was a life-bound spiritual artifact and rather conspicuous, potentially recognized by acquaintances, Lu Changxing also chose not to sell it, planning to decide what to do with it later. Afterward, Lu Changxing inquired about the location of the Qingyun Commerce Guild. He changed his appearance again and headed towards the Qingyun Commerce Guild. For constructing the 7 luminaries heart lamp, he already had several of the common materials, but the rest were rarer spiritual materials, which were hard to find in ordinary shops. They could only be purchased from big commerce guilds and large shops. In addition to buying materials for the 7 luminaries heart lamp, Lu Changxing also intended to purchase a second-rank talisman brush and materials for drawing second-tier top-level supreme talismans. Chapter 323, The Army of Golden Armor Warriors. The way to enter Qingyun's sect at the peak of Qi refinement, he could only draw second-rank lower-quality talismans and barely manage middle-quality ones. Now that he had broken through the foundation establishment, he was almost capable of drawing supreme second-rank talismans. Naturally, he needed to draw some talismans for self-protection. Welcome to Qingyun Commerce Guild. May I know if the guest is here to buy or sell? As soon as Lu Changxing stepped into the Qingyun Commerce Guild, a beautiful female cultivator dressed in the standard Cheongsam uniform of the guild approached to serve him. Both buying and selling. Lu Changxing casually replied. After being invited to sit down and having tea promptly served, Lu Changxing took out a storage bag and placed it on the table, saying, "I want to sell these materials, please give me an estimate." "Please wait a moment, fellow Taoist." The female cultivator smiled politely and began to count and evaluate the materials in front of him. It wasn't easy to become a receptionist at Qingyun Commerce Guild. One not only needed to be a cultivator but also had to be adept at appraising materials. After a while, the female cultivator respectfully said, "Senior, I have counted the materials you wish to sell, and our purchase price is 3,391 spirit stones. May I know your opinion? If you need, I can list the purchase price of each item for you." The female cultivator crouched to the side, causing her figure-hugging Cheongsam to tighten and outline her exquisite curves, very tempting to the eye. "No need, that price will do." Lu Changxing nodded his head. He had also roughly estimated the value of these materials. The value was around 5,000 spirit stones. But value was just value. It was not guaranteed that he could sell them all on his own. Buying was also quite troublesome. In places like the Qingyun Commerce Guild, they typically bought at about 60 to 70% of the market value. "Alright, then I will finalize the price for the senior." The female cultivator took out her own storage bag and began placing items into it one by one. But she didn't rush to settle the payment in spirit stones and asked instead, "Earlier the senior mentioned needing to buy as well, may I know what you wish to purchase? Take a look at these materials." Lu Changxing, without saying much, took out a list he had prepared. "Please wait a moment, senior." The female cultivator took the list and glanced at it, her eyes lighting up instantly. She realized it was a significant transaction. She quickly took out a jade scroll, looking up the inventory information for the materials on the list. Originally, he had considered going all out and buying a supreme second-rank talisman pen. This wouldn't only save him the trouble of changing pens later, but also make drawing supreme second-rank talismans much more stable. He didn't expect a second-rank talisman pen to be so costly. Mainly because when Xianxia broke through to Foundation establishment, the outside spiritual energy wasn't enough, and he had to crush middle-grade spirit stones to provide her with nature's spiritual energy. It altogether consumed more than 80 of his middle-grade spirit stones. That is more than 8,000 spirit stones. So after selling his magic artifacts and materials today, leaving him with just over 9,000 spirit stones, he only had a little over 10,000 spirit stones left. Additionally, he still needed to purchase materials for drawing second-rank talismans. As you wish, Senior, I will fetch it for you right now. Seeing that Lu Changxing was not only buying a great quantity of materials but also purchasing a supreme second-rank talisman pen, the female cultivator knew she had encountered a major client and was very pleased, speaking respectfully. After all, as a receptionist she did have a commission. Not in a hurry, Qingyun Commerce Guild should buy second-rank talismans too, right? Lu Changxing continued. Now that he had broken through to the Foundation establishment stage, the lower-quality second-rank talismans he possessed were not very useful to him anymore. He might consider selling some, exchanging them for spirit stones. After all, it's always wise to have some spirit stones on hand for emergencies. Chapter 324. The Army of Golden Armor Warriors. The way to enter Qingyun sect. It's impossible to spend all the spirit stones. Moreover, he planned to visit several other shops to see if they had the 7-colored copper and earth fire stone he needed. We certainly take that. The female cultivator nodded with a smile. Then she paused before continuing in a sweet, euphemistic tone. However, our Qingyun Commerce Guild only purchases premium talismans. If the talismans are of poor quality, we do not buy them. You can check the quality of this talisman. Lu Changxing took out 10 second-rank lower-grade talismans. Please, Senior, rest in our VIP room here. I, myself, do not understand talismans well, so I need to ask the manager to appraise them, said the female cultivator as she took the talismans with both hands. All right. Lu Changxing nodded. He knew that these receptionists were just ordinary cultivators. Being able to recognize and appraise many spiritual materials was already quite commendable. Asking them to judge the quality of second-rank talismans might be asking too much. He followed the other party to the second-floor VIP room to wait. Before long, a spirited old man in his 50s with white hair appeared with the female cultivator in the VIP room. Who from the Qingyun Commerce Guild? Seeing the exquisite quality of the talismans you wish to sell, I took the liberty of coming to meet you, the old man said politely as he made a salute to Lu Changxing. You flatter me, Taoist who? Lu Changxing responded, also making a slight salute. In that case, it seems that your guild is willing to purchase my talismans. Of course. With such quality talismans, the guild will buy as many as you have, and is willing to purchase at 75% of the market price, said Manager Hu cheerfully. 75%. Lu Changxing nodded and said, Then I thank you, Manager Hu. He knew that the Qingyun Commerce Guild's purchase price for talismans was generally 60%. At most, they would go up to 70%. So offering 75% was already quite good. Besides the 10 talismans just now, I have another 15 here for Manager Hu to look at. Lu Changxing took out another 15 second-rank lower-grade talismans and said. He had a total of 59 second-rank lower-grade talismans on him. But there was no rush to sell them all at once. Moreover, he felt that Manager Hu's visit was not just a simple courtesy call. Let me see. Manager Hu took the 15 talismans and carefully examined them, noting that they were all premium quality talismans. These 15 talismans, like the previous 10, would be 14,000 spirit stones at the market price. At 75%, our guild is willing to offer a purchase price of 7,900 spirit stones. I wonder what Taoist Han thinks. Manager Hu asked. No problem, thank you, Manager Hu. Lu Changxing nodded when he heard the offer. The price for these second-rank lower-grade talismans averaged around 400 spirit stones each. Although his high-quality premium talismans could fetch a higher price by an additional 10 or 20% on the market, the offered price was not unfair. Moreover, his cost per talisman was only 26 spirit stones, so a little less was still acceptable. I wonder if Taoist has any other needs? Manager Hu inquired. I need to purchase some talisman-making materials. Lu Changxing said thoughtfully. Naturally, we have them, beer. Manager Hu, guessing Lu Changxing's answer and confirming his speculation, smiled and instructed. The receptionist named Beer took out a jade scroll, selecting and showing Lu Changxing the second-ranked talisman-making materials. Afterward, Lu Changxing purchased 30 portions of ordinary, advanced and superior quality second-ranked talisman paper and spiritual ink, costing a total of 5,280 spirit stones. I presume Taoist is a second-grade talisman master. If I may be so bold, are you part of any power? If not, would you be interested in becoming a guest elder of our Qingyun Commerce Guild? We are always on the lookout for talents like you, Manager Hu invited after Lu Changxing had finished his purchases. This was also the reason he had come in person. Having seen the second-ranked talismans earlier, he had discerned that Lu Changxing's achievements on the talisman path were extraordinary. At the very least, he was a middle-grade second-grade talisman master. Now, seeing Lu Changxing purchasing so many talisman crafting materials, his guess was confirmed, and he extended an invitation directly. Oh? May I know what responsibilities and benefits come with becoming a guest elder of your esteemed guild? Upon hearing this, Lu Changxing asked aloud. When this shopkeeper who had come over, he had guessed that his visit wasn't simply a courtesy call. It turned out he wanted to invite him to join the Commerce Guild. Originally, when he was at the Nine Dragons Market, making purchases for second-grade talisman crafting materials from the Qingyun Commerce Guild and Myriad Treasures Pavilion, he had also been asked about this matter. But as he hadn't revealed too much at that time, no managers approached him with inquiries. Receiving the invitation now, he couldn't help but be curious. He wanted to learn more about the responsibilities and treatment that came with joining the Qingyun Commerce Guild. If fellow Taoist is willing to become a guest elder of our Qingyun Commerce Guild, you would only need to craft a batch of talismans for our guild each month, or provide talismans urgently when our guild requires them. As for the benefits, not only is there a generous monthly salary, but fellow Taoist will also get an internal price and enjoy discounts when purchasing items from our Qingyun Commerce Guild. Furthermore, whatever materials you need, our Qingyun Commerce Guild can procure them for you. Moreover, our guild hosts a grand skills competition every year, where fellow Taoists can communicate with many peers in the same field, exchange insights and grow together. Fellow Taoists should know that our Qingyun Commerce Guild is backed by the Qingyun sect. If fellow Taoists make significant contributions to our guild, we have an internal recommendation quota from the Qingyun sect which can be used to refer fellow Taoists into the Qingyun sect. Within the sect, fellow Taoists can not only receive instruction from core elders but might even be favored by an elder and taken in as a disciple. Shopkeeper who began to speak slowly. Join the Qingyun sect? After hearing this, Lu Changxing's eyebrows shot up. He roughly understood the biggest benefit of joining the Qingyun Commerce Guild now. Not only could he enjoy various benefits and treatment but also had the channel to enter the Qingyun sect. For many loose cultivators, being able to join an immortal sect like Qingyun sect at an older age was naturally a much sought-after opportunity. I see, thank you Shopkeeper Hu for informing me. However, I currently do not have any intention of joining other factions. I will need to consider it for a while, and if I have any inclination in this regard later on, I will trouble Shopkeeper Hu then. Lu Changxing slightly bowed with a hint of apology. In his view, joining the Qingyun Commerce Guild and having the backing of the Qingyun sect was not bad. Not only was it good to benefit from a powerful backer, but it would also be much more convenient to collect materials in the future. As for the responsibilities, if he only needed to craft a batch of talismans each month, it wouldn't be too difficult for him, who had nearly 100% success rate in talisman making. It would just mean spending a bit more time and effort and being slightly inconvenienced. However, since his current identity was fake, it was naturally impossible for him to join the Qingyun Commerce Guild. Should he reveal himself to be a second-grade talisman master in the future, it would be worth considering. Of course, that is understandable. If Han fellow Taoist is interested, you can come and find me anytime, Shopkeeper Hu said with a smile, not at all disappointed. Because such matters were quite normal. To have honed a skill to such a level, he was obviously invited many times already. It was possible he was currently serving in some capacity within a certain faction. How could he agree just because someone asked? What he needed to do was extend the invitation and leave a good impression. Hoping that when Lu Changxing was inclined in this direction, he would consider their Qingyun Commerce Guild. Senior Han, here are your items. A total of 24,880 spirit stones, deducting the 11,291 spirit stones for the materials and talisman you sold, you need to pay 13,589 spirit stones. At this moment, the female cultivator receptionist brought over the items Lu Changxing had purchased and asked him to check them. Alright, there's no problem. Lu Changxing checked the materials in the storage bag and nodded. Fellow Daoist Han, you can just pay 13,000, shopkeeper Hu said with a chuckle, rounding down the amount. Thank you, shopkeeper Hu. Lu Changxing, realizing the show of goodwill, immediately expressed his thanks. He paid with spirit stones and then took his leave. After leaving the Qingyun Commerce Guild, Lu Changxing went to an inn as usual, to double-check his items. Although a big store like Qingyun Commerce Guild wouldn't usually do such things, one must always be cautious. Having confirmed there were no issues, Lu Changxing changed his appearance and prepared to visit other shops, to see if he could purchase the 7-colored copper and earth heart stone he needed. Chapter 325, The Concept of Dao Soldiers, Jianghu Country's #1 Loose Cultivator _1. Finally, everything's gathered. As he stepped out of the 6th shop, Lu Changxing let out a sigh of relief. At the Myriad Treasures Pavilion, he had purchased earth fire stones. But after asking around several shops, none had the 7-colored copper. Fortunately, luck was on his side. In this shop, for 2,000 spirit stones, he managed to acquire the last material needed for casting the 7 Luminaries' heart lamp. Once I return to Jianghu Mountain and condense the 7 Luminaries' heart lamp, he'll be able to forge this life-bound spiritual artifact. Having gathered all the necessary materials, Lu Changxing was in great spirits. After all, it would have been quite upsetting had he missed just one material. Now that I've broken through to Foundation Establishment, I should also buy some elixir medicines suitable for increasing cultivation level during the Foundation Establishment stage. Lu Changxing thought to himself. If one wished to cultivate quickly, consuming medicinal pills was indispensable. Relying on personal cultivation alone, it would take 8 to 9 years to progress from the first level to the second level of Foundation Establishment. But with enough elixir medicines and the aid of the 7 Luminaries' heart lamp to refine the elixir toxicity and purify mana, it's estimated it would take just 2 to 3 years to reach the second level. Immediately after, Lu Changxing headed to the old and established Elixir Cauldron Pavilion to inquire about elixirs suitable for the Foundation Establishment stage. Senior, our shop has harmonizing energy elixirs and origin nurturing elixirs suitable for the Foundation Establishment stage. However, the origin nurturing elixirs are all sold out, leaving only one bottle of harmonizing energy elixir. If Senior is interested, you may pay a deposit and we will notify you once we restock. Upon hearing Lu Changxing's inquiry about Foundation Establishment elixir medicines, the shop clerk immediately responded with respect. Only one bottle of harmonizing energy elixir? Upon hearing this, Lu Changxing felt somewhat disappointed. But he knew that, just like second-rank talismans, most shops didn't stock many second-rank elixir medicines. Unless one was acquainted with a second-rank alchemist. Otherwise, it would be impossible to make large purchases. How many spirit stones for the harmonizing energy elixir, and do you have elixirs that increase cultivation level for the energy refinement late stage? Lu Changxing continued to inquire. Senior, the harmonizing energy elixir is 1,200 spirit stones. For the energy refinement late stage cultivation enhancing elixirs, our shop currently has the energy refining powder, energy nurturing elixir, and the condensing energy elixir. After quoting the price, the clerk took out a jade scroll and began introducing Lu Changxing to various elixir medicines suitable for the energy refinement late stage. These elixirs were also somewhat beneficial to Foundation Establishment cultivators. For example, the energy refining powder could increase the speed of refining nature's spiritual energy. The energy nurturing elixir could nourish spiritual energy and accelerate its circulation within the body. However, relatively speaking, the effects of these elixirs on Foundation Establishment cultivators were quite ordinary. Apart from the harmonizing energy elixir, Lu Changxing also purchased the store's remaining 3 bottles of energy nurturing elixir and 1 bottle of condensing energy elixir. In total, he spent 2,200 spirit stones. Just as Lu Changxing had finished paying the spirit stones and was about to leave, "Little Yu, has the customer who reserved the 3 Suns elixir not come to claim it yet?" "Shopkeeper, that customer has not yet arrived." 3 days ago I sent Xiao Wu to contact the customer at the provided address, but still couldn't reach them. The shopkeeper came downstairs and asked one of the employees. 3 Suns Elixir? Upon hearing this conversation, Lu Changxing paused mid-step. He was familiar with this elixir. A second-rank spirit pill. Derived from the idea of 3 suns bring prosperity. After consumption, it could not only increase cultivation level, saving years of arduous cultivation, but also eradicate any hidden illnesses or risks within a cultivator's body, as if shone upon by the bright sun, dissolving them all away. It has a somewhat miraculous effect on cultivators at the perfection stage of energy refinement advancing to foundation establishment, even humorously dubbed the Junior Foundation Establishment Elixir. Lu Changxing knew of the 3 Suns Elixir and had initially thought to prepare one for himself. However, this elixir was considered a rather rare second-rank elixir medicine. He had visited several shops initially and had not managed to purchase it. Now, hearing this conversation, Lu Changxing couldn't help but entertain the thought of buying it. He was already at foundation establishment and didn't need it for himself, but he could buy it as a gift for his wife, Lu Miaoge. Currently, Lu Miaoge's cultivation level was at the 8th level of energy refinement. It was estimated she would need another 2 to 3 years to break through to the 9th level. By then, Lu Miaoge would be in her 40s. Although at that age, if one could reach the perfection stage of energy refinement and attempt foundation establishment before 60, as one grows older, the challenge of achieving foundation establishment grows greater. Naturally, he hoped his wife could cultivate to the perfection stage of energy refinement sooner. Moreover, despite Lu Miaoge having recovered from the previous assassination attempt, it was uncertain if any hidden issues remained. Possessing a 3 Suns elixir would not only increase cultivation level, but also eliminate any hidden risks in her body, granting Lu Miaoge a greater hope of successfully reaching foundation establishment. Shopkeeper, since the original buyer has not come to claim the pill, is this 3 Suns elixir still for sale? If you are willing to sell, how much would it cost? Lu Changxing respectfully inquired, looking at the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper was slightly surprised by the question, but immediately, after hearing from the clerk that Lu Changxing had just spent over 2,000 spirit stones and might be a foundation establishment cultivator, he cheerfully said, "If Daoist friend is interested, our shop naturally is willing to sell." The 3 Suns elixir is priced at 3,800 spirit stones, the shopkeeper declared. Agreed, I'll take the 3 Suns elixir, Lu Changxing said promptly, nodding. The price wasn't cheap, but it wasn't very expensive either. After all, the prices in large shops tend to be a little higher. Besides, precious elixirs often fluctuate in price. Shopkeeper, I don't have enough spirit stones on me, could I offset the cost with talismans? Lu Changxing took out 3 talismans and asked. He didn't know exactly how many spirit stones he had, as he had not counted them. But it was roughly between 3,000 and 4,000. In such circumstances, it's only right to keep some spirit stones on hand for emergencies. Second-rank lower-quality talismans? As the shopkeeper of Elixir Cauldron Pavilion, he naturally had an extraordinary eye. He took the talismans, looked them over for a moment and said politely, "Second-rank talismans can indeed be used for offsetting the cost, but our shop can only accept them at 60% of the market price." Chapter 326. The concept of Dao soldiers. Jianghu country's #1 loose cultivator. Alright, a 40% discount it is. Lu Changxing nodded slightly upon hearing this, agreeing to the discounted price. He couldn't possibly run to the Qingyun Commerce Guild now to ask if they were still purchasing talismans. Immediately he took out 10 second-rank talismans, deducted 2,500 spirit stones, and paid an additional 1,300 spirit stones. I wonder when he'll be able to draw a second-rank alchemy skill. Otherwise, not only are second-rank elixir medicines hard to purchase, but their prices are also high. The little money I painstakingly earn all goes into this. Tucking away the 3 Suns elixir, Lu Changxing left the store and couldn't help but think to himself. Currently, his talismans were yielding a 20-fold profit. Among the 4 mainstream skills of cultivation, the profit margins for elixir medicines are only higher than those for talisman making. It isn't just about making money that simple. He also thought that with alchemy skills of his own, he wouldn't have to worry about elixir medicines. Not just alchemy but formation skills are also needed. If I want to establish my own family, it's essential to have someone in the clan who understands formations. Otherwise, if a family has to rely on others for formations, they would be oblivious to any loopholes or defects. Lu Changxing considered in his mind. He felt that the road to establishing a family on his own seemed quite long and difficult. Next, he'll find a bookstore to ask about Dao soldiers, and that should be enough. Lu Changxing didn't dwell on this. He prepared to find a bookstore to learn about Dao soldiers. After looking around, Lu Changxing saw 10,000 Laws bookstore. He recognized it as a shop selling cultivation technique classics. He went in and inquired about books on Dao soldiers. Dao soldiers? May I inquire which aspect of Dao soldiers you're interested in learning about? The shop owner asked with some surprise upon hearing Lu Changxing's intention. Regarding Dao soldiers, I've only heard a little and am quite interested, so I want to understand more in detail. Any classics on this subject will do. Lu Changxing said so. Information about Dao soldiers is not widely known in the cultivation world, and there are very few classics on the subject. I happen to know a bit about Dao soldiers. If you're willing to pay 100 spirit stones for tea, I'm willing to enlighten you and give a brief introduction, the shop owner said with a smile. People like him who run bookstores not only sell cultivation technique classics. They also possess a wealth of knowledge about many aspects of the cultivation world. If you can resolve my queries, naturally, I am willing to offer the 100 spirit stones for tea. Lu Changxing took out 50 spirit stones and spoke. At the Nine Dragons Market, he knew that the monopoly on high-end knowledge in this world was severe. The absence of related classics on Dao soldiers also indicated that the subject is advanced and known by few. Therefore, 100 spirit stones for tea wasn't considered steep. In some shops selling information, a single piece of news could cost thousands to tens of thousands of spirit stones. You are straightforward. Seeing this, the shop owner smiled. He invited Lu Changxing to sit down, poured a cup of spiritual tea, and began to talk about information related to Dao soldiers. Actually, Dao soldier is just a general term. Like puppets, demon beasts, corpses, ghost soldiers, artifact spirits, and even cultivators can all be referred to as some type of Dao soldier. However, being called a Dao soldier often means having a certain quantity of the same kind, much like the soldiers and generals of the secular world. The shop owner took a sip of his tea and said, broadly speaking, Dao soldiers can be classified into 3 types: domesticated soldiers, refined soldiers, and magic soldiers. Lu Changxing also took a sip of his spiritual tea, nodded slightly, and signaled for the other party to continue. The first type, domesticated soldiers, is as the name suggests. Humans or demon beasts are raised as Dao soldiers. However, this kind of domestication is not ordinary breeding. It involves using some cultivation technique, secret technique, or soldier training method to raise cultivators or demon beasts as Dao soldiers. These Dao soldiers possess not only cultivation level and mana but are also capable of fighting and managing armies, as well as arranging formations. Many formations don't require human manipulation, but the most formidable formations still need many people to control them. That's where the role of Dao soldiers becomes evident. I've heard that some profound techniques for raising domesticated soldiers enable the resulting Dao soldiers not only to form great formations but also to enhance their cultivation level and strength via the formations. The shop owner took another sip of tea, slowly introducing the topic. People can also be raised as Dao soldiers? Lu Changxing was somewhat surprised to hear this. All beings have a spirit. It's not strange for us to be raised as Dao soldiers. The shop owner chuckled, finishing his cup of tea. He continued, both the secular world and the cultivation world have practices of training loyal warriors. You can consider these as a type of raised Dao soldiers as well. However, raising Dao soldiers usually involves hundreds or thousands of them, and it often takes decades or even centuries to raise a force. That's why few powers choose to raise humans as Dao soldiers. The shop owner refilled his tea. Why is that? Lu Changxing asked. Because raising a force of Dao soldiers not only consumes time and energy but also resources. Only large powers have the ability to raise Dao soldiers. Raising humans as Dao soldiers, on one hand, is against the natural order. Moreover, the resources required for raising humans as Dao soldiers are too vast, and by the time the Dao soldiers are completed, human lifespans are too short. Compared to humans, demon beasts not only live longer but also consume far fewer resources, making them ideal for becoming domesticated soldiers. That's why if a power is to raise Dao soldiers, they would undoubtedly choose to raise demon beasts as Dao soldiers instead of humans. The shop owner spoke, refilling Lu Changxing's tea as well. I see. Lu Changxing had a realization upon hearing this. Chapter 327. The concept of Dao soldiers. Jiang country's #1 loose cultivator. Regarding these domesticated Dao soldiers, there was now a general understanding. It involved using some kind of cultivation technique to train humans or demon beasts into a kind of death warriors. But these death warriors not only possessed high combat effectiveness, but they could also form battle formations. Whether in magical combat against enemies or other matters, they were extraordinary. May I ask, fellow Taoist, what about refined soldiers and magic soldiers? What's the situation with them? Lu Changxing sipped his tea and continued to inquire. As for refined soldiers, for example, certain puppets with unique characteristics, spirits of magical treasures, or those created through techniques such as corpse refinement and ghost nurturing, any Dao soldiers artificially made are collectively known as refined soldiers. As for magic soldiers, they are mostly magical treasures capable of cultivating and nurturing Dao soldiers. For instance, in the demon path there is an extremely famous magical treasure called the Myriad Soul Banner, which, after killing human or demon beasts, can refine their souls into the banner, turning them into fierce ghosts. Such are known as magic soldiers. What most of us refer to as Dao soldiers, generally means those that have been cultivated, and the cultivators and forces that can cultivate Dao soldiers in the cultivation world are truly few and far between, which is why so few people know of Dao soldiers. The shopkeeper lightly sipped his tea, smiling as he spoke. Domesticated soldiers? Refined soldiers? Magic soldiers? Lu Changxing, upon hearing about the 3 types of Dao soldiers, nodded thoughtfully as if gaining a rough concept of them. So with that said, which category of Dao soldiers does my golden armor bean mother fall into? Lu Changxing felt that his golden armor bean mother didn't seem to fit into any of the 3 types of Dao soldiers the shopkeeper mentioned. It was somewhat like a domesticated soldier, but also somewhat like a magic soldier. He remembered the system had introduced it as a spirit plant type Dao soldier. It seemed to lean more towards the domesticated soldier type. However, he didn't pay it much mind. The shopkeeper was only a Qi refinement peak cultivator after all. His understanding of Dao soldiers was bound to be limited and couldn't possibly encompass everything. Besides, rewards from the system couldn't be measured by ordinary standards. May I ask, fellow Taoist, in our Jianghu country cultivation realm, are there any forces that have Dao soldiers? Lu Changxing continued to inquire. Lu Changxing nodded slightly upon hearing this. He had heard of this beast-taming Su family, one of Jianghu country's 3 great cultivation families. With a nascent soul immortal sitting in residence, it was a true cultivation family. It is not at all comparable to small cultivation families like Qingzhu's Lu family or Red Leaf Valley's Qin family. Unexpectedly, this family not only has a nascent soul ancestor presiding but also cultivates Dao soldiers. However, he discovered that the store owner spoke only of domesticating Dao soldiers. There was no mention of refining soldiers or magic soldiers. Right away, Lu Changxing inquired about refining soldiers and magic soldiers. Dao soldiers are indeed rare and difficult to cultivate. Compared to domesticated soldiers, refining soldiers have more associations with the heretical path, and naturally they are less seen in Jianghu country. Centuries ago, the royal family of Yu country, which bordered our Jianghu country, secretly stirred up successive wars to select a batch of battle-hardened soldiers and refine a type of Dao soldier. When the several great immortal sects of Yu country learned of this, they directly exterminated the entire royal family. As for magic soldiers, they are even more exceedingly rare. Apart from the infamous Myriad Soul Banner of the Demon Path, I've heard that the Yiming Ghost sect of Jin Kingdom has a treasured artifact known as the Myriad Ghost's Blood Pool, which uses the blood of myriad spirits for nourishment and can foster a type of Dao soldier. The shop owner said this and then finished another cup of tea. After speaking, he also turned to Lu Changxing and said, "Fellow Taoist, this is all I know about Dao soldiers. Thank you for enlightening me and broadening my horizons." Lu Changxing immediately cupped his hands in thanks. He handed over the remaining 50 spirit stones for the tea and then took his leave. These Dao soldiers really do sound impressive. If I could draw a magical treasure capable of nurturing Dao soldiers from the system lottery, perhaps I could cultivate my own Dao soldiers, Lu Changxing thought to himself. Having understood roughly the three types of Dao soldiers, he felt magic soldiers were the best. Whether it was domesticated soldiers or refined soldiers, they were too difficult in terms of time and effort. Only magic soldiers, which could be nurtured and cultivated using a magical treasure, were the best option. It was also the most likely for him to obtain directly through the system lottery. Without further thought, Lu Changxing found an inn to disguise himself in new clothes and then quickly left Qingyun Market. Quite smart to know to change his appearance and disguise. But daring to compete with me Meng Yibai for a woman, he must pay the price. At the entrance and exit of the marketplace, atop the second-floor balcony, a young man in his 20s, bursting with vigor, sensed something and stood up, looking outwards. In his hand, a golden hamster appeared, pointing out Lu Changxing, who had just left the marketplace, from the crowd. Lu Changxing, after stepping out of the marketplace, did not ride the iron feather eagle. He also did not control a flying artifact. Instead, he attempted to fly by controlling the air. After all, the most significant feature of a breakthrough from Qi refining to foundation establishment is the ability to fly through the air without relying on flying artifacts. Now that he had broken through to foundation establishment, it was natural for him to try out and experience it. With a movement of his mental spirit, Lu Changxing naturally rose into the air and began to fly through the air. Many cultivators were coming and going next to Qingyun Market. Seeing Lu Changxing flying, they all gave way, showing envy and respect. Even in large marketplaces like Qingyun Market, energy refining cultivators are more common. Seeing a cultivator flying through the air, they naturally understood he was a foundation establishment great cultivator, and they didn't dare to offend him. Because if this great cultivator was in a bad mood and felt they were in the way, a simple slap could kill them without anywhere to seek justice. The reason energy refining cultivators cannot fly is that their spiritual power is insufficient to support their bodies, and they need to rely on flying artifacts. But after breaking through to foundation establishment, one undergoes a profound transformation, shedding the mortal coil, and the spiritual energy within transforms into mana, becoming more than 10 times more robust, enabling the body to lift off and fly through the air. Lu Changxing tried out flying and understood the principle behind it. Immediately he descended from the air, released the iron feather eagle, and flew towards Qingzhou Mountain. Even though foundation establishment cultivators can fly through the air, they cannot do so for long distances without incurring some consumption. Therefore, it's still preferable to travel by mount or artifact. Meanwhile, Meng Yibai left Qingyun Market and released a palm-sized golden hamster from his spirit beast bag. Which direction did he go? He fed it an elixir medicine and spoke faintly. Chirp, chirp, chirp. The golden hamster nibbled on the elixir and immediately pointed in one direction. Chapter 328, Sword Cultivator Duel. Who killed my grandson? Underscore 1, Dreams of dust. I cannot awaken alone. Atop the Qingyun platform my true self is shown. Yin and Yang, 5 elements, all are clear, forming a jade platform to establish the Tao foundation. I walk the great Tao alone, not of my own will. Free in the mortal world, prosperity spans myriad ages. Humans are not heartless like grass and trees. I cut down the mortal body, not the heart. Lu Changxing stood with his hands behind his back, atop the iron feather eagle, his blue robe flapping in the wind, reciting the settling poem he had composed to himself. After flying for several hundred miles, Lu Changxing suddenly sensed a fierce aura behind him, rushing towards him like lightning. Confronted with this ferocious aura, Lu Changxing's face darkened slightly, his mind alert. After all, having been in the cultivation world for so many years, he was quite experienced. Having just left the marketplace and encountering this, he couldn't help but be cautious. With past experience to guide him, Lu Changxing immediately stood in the air on his flying artifact, and he retracted the iron feather eagle, a mere means of transportation, into his spiritual pet bag. The next moment, Lu Changxing saw a golden escape light, fast like a shooting star, tearing through the air as it charged ferociously toward him. Is it him? As the escape light drew near, Lu Changxing immediately recognized a young man about 24 or 25 years old, dressed in a golden robe, riding a flying shuttle. It was the same young man he had seen in the Qingyun Market when Xianxia had emerged from the cave dwelling with him, Meng Yibai. Lu Changxing had guessed then that the other might hold pursuit intentions towards Xianxia, and upon seeing the close interaction between him and Xianxia, may harbor jealousy or something of the sort. He had changed his appearance for this very reason. Yet, despite his many disguises and altered appearances, this man had fixed his sights on him and was coming directly to assassinate him. Swoosh! Meng Yibai approached Lu Changxing with a chilling expression, not uttering a word. A dazzling golden sword rainbow slashed towards Lu Changxing, sharp and swift. Pft! Lu Changxing, well prepared, raised his right hand leisurely. The 7 luminary sword light surged forth, cleaving the air and shattering the golden sword rainbow. Who are you and why do you attack me out of the blue? Lu Changxing called out, looking at Meng Yibai before him. If it were an ordinary robber cultivator, he naturally wouldn't waste words with them. But having chatted with Xianxia, he knew the young man was not only a disciple of Qingyun's sect but also had an elder who was a false core immortal. If possible, Lu Changxing really didn't want to make an enemy of him. After all, to kill someone like that would likely invite trouble. Moreover, Lu Changxing also wanted to know how the other could see through his disguises and lock onto his trail. Indeed, you have some skill. Just established your foundation and you can break my sword chi. As for why I attack you, I think you are well aware of the reason in your heart. Meng Yibai sneered. He stood tall on the flying shuttle, like a pike piercing the heavens, proud and sharp. I truly don't know where I have offended you? Lu Changxing put on an expression of a wry smile. Since you don't know, then take your doubts with you to the grave. Meng Yibai did not speak further, coldly shouted, formed a spell with his hands, his aura became fierce, causing a sound of golden resonance in the void. A splendid gold flying sword appeared. Countless golden runes flowed along the sword body, and with sword chi that crisscrossed, it launched a sharp attack on Lu Changxing. Sigh, it seems there's no room for talk. Lu Changxing, seeing the approaching golden flying sword, his expression solemnly changed and stopped talking. Knowing this man's domineering and arrogant nature and the jealousy and murderous intent he held, he was simply unwilling to talk further. Since that's the case, let's see whose flying sword is sharper. Lu Changxing said coldly. He wasn't to be messed with, and having just completed his foundation establishment, he was also eager to test his own abilities. He smacked his storage bag and a blood-colored pair of scissors appeared. With a surge of mana, they transformed into a blood-colored flood dragon, roaring ferociously at the golden flying sword. Meanwhile, a pale white flying sword appeared in front of him. Sword Shadow Dividing Light Technique. Lu Changxing formed a spell with 2 hands, and rainbow lights were infused into the flying sword. The pale white flying sword trembled fiercely, and 7 colors of treasured light flowed as it created 2 identical flying swords. The next moment, another 2 identical flying swords appeared. In total, 8 flying swords formed before Lu Changxing. The 7 Luminaries' Great Freedom Sword Scripture's 2nd level not only has the divine skill, the 7 Luminaries' Heart Lamp, which can create a life-bound spiritual artifact, it also has 2 spell divine skills. The first spell is known as the Sword Shadow Dividing Light Technique. When facing an enemy, this technique can create up to 8 sword shadows identical to the actual flying sword. The sword shadows can not only confound the enemy's sight, but each also possesses 30% of the original's power. The second spell is named the Shimmering Shadow Condensation Sword Technique. After deploying the Sword Shadow Dividing Light Technique and creating several sword shadows, all shadows can be converged into the flying sword for the strongest slash. This caused the 8 illusionary flying swords to tremble violently and shine brilliantly. Subsequently, they transformed into streaks of 7-colored rainbow light, merging into the pristine white flying sword, which expanded greatly, transforming into a giant sword over 3 meters long. Slash! Lu Changxing pointed like a sword and commanded the flying sword to cut down. The giant sword rose, with 7 colors of divine light swirling around it, and an endless surge of fierce and chilling sword chi seemed ready to extinguish all vitality as it slashed towards Meng Yibai with astounding momentum. Clang clang clang, under the terrifying onslaught of the 7-colored giant sword, the golden flying sword let out a distressed cry as though it couldn't bear the pressure. How is this possible? How can you, a cultivator who has just broken through to the foundation establishment, have the ability to use such techniques, to have such power? Meng Yibai looked at the 7-colored giant sword, his eyelid twitching uncontrollably as shock took over his expression. As a sword cultivator, he was already considered unbeaten among his peers. Thus, he had not regarded Lu Changxing, who had only just broken through Foundation establishment, as a threat. Earlier, Lu Changxing's shimmering shadow technique had merely made him acknowledge that Lu was an impressive talent. No wonder he had caught the eye of a prodigy like Xianxia. But now this technique was beyond what mere talent could account for. Or rather, this was definitely not a technique that a cultivator who had just broken through Foundation establishment should have. Lu Changxing's expression was indifferent, and he didn't reply, intent on slaying Meng Yibai with one sword. This youth has such astonishing methods. He must have obtained an unparalleled sword cultivation inheritance. Even if it costs me, it will be worth it to slay him. Meng Yibai's body burst with sword chi, and he took out a large tortoise shell to block the attack from the giant sword. The golden sword bead, after forming a heaven-covering sword chi net, suddenly burst forth in a flourish of sharp light, tearing through the air as it aimed for Lu Changxing. Simultaneously, a blue talisman appeared in his hand, glowing and pulsing with energy. Talisman treasure. Lu Changxing immediately noticed Meng Yibai's action. He recognized the blue talisman in his hand as a talisman treasure. Indeed, befitting a disciple of the Immortal sects, talisman treasures seem to be standard issue. Previously Xianxia had a talisman treasure by her side, and now so did this person. Go! Lu Changxing did not bring out his talisman treasure, the golden light brick, to counterattack. His golden light brick magical treasure had limited remaining power and was not suitable for prolonged use. He slapped his storage bag and released a top-grade shield magic artifact and his second-rank puppet to block the sword bead. Boom, 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 the forcefully activated talisman treasure and sword bead erupted, colliding constantly in front of the seven-colored giant sword. But his mana was largely expended, and he was suppressed by the golden brick, his mana sluggish. Facing such a fearsome assault, how could he possibly block it? Puchi, puchi, puchi. 5 spears from behind the second-rank puppet burst forth simultaneously, piercing through Meng Yibai's protective aura and then through his body like thunder. Pooh! In an instant, Meng Yibai spat blood and lost the strength to support his talisman treasure and sword bead against the attack. The next moment, the 7-colored giant sword descended like the opening of the heavens and the earth, slicing Meng Yibai's body in two, splattering blood and drenching the sky. My methods are still too few. Were it not for the mana enhancement and support from the profound origin bead, the outcome of this battle would have been uncertain. Not to mention, this flying sword isn't quite suited to me. After witnessing Meng Yibai's death, Lu Changxing let out a breath and murmured to himself, gaining a rough understanding of his own strength. Without dwelling on it further, he instantly reached out with a man-influenced hand, capturing the opponent's treasures and body, and disappeared in an escape light. At that moment, Qingyun sect. Within a golden and dazzling magnificent palace. An old lady with aged features and graying hair suddenly felt something in her heart. A life-bound jade token appeared in her hand. But now this life-bound jade token showed cracks. Yibai. Watching the broken life-bound token in her hand, her eyes filled with disbelief as she let out a piercing scream. Who is it? Who killed my grandson? The old lattice's entire presence saturated the air, and her eyes revealed a reddish hue. Moments later, she transformed into a rainbow light and flew out of the palace. Straight away, steering a spirit boat, she turned into an escape light and shot towards the Qingyun market. I wonder how much it would take for a false core immortal, 30 years or 50. Lu Changxing pondered silently. Although the false core immortal is called an immortal, there is, after all, a false prefix. It is not achieved through their own cultivation but by relying on external objects and refining a demon core to advance. In comparison to a true nascent soul immortal, there's no way to compare. Whether it's in terms of strength or lifespan, they fall far short of a nascent soul immortal. Not only is their cultivation unable to progress further in this life, but their lifespan is also limited to just over 300 years. Nevertheless, this is a last resort. If it can be avoided, it's best avoided. Not only would it waste 2 of my treasures, but the death of a false core immortal might also provoke an investigation by the Qingyun sect. Lu Changxing considered to himself. Then he closed his eyes, sat cross-legged, and began to circulate the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture. He tried to transform his mana into 7 luminary sword chi to refine the resentful soul thread. After all, the 7 luminary sword chi can refine elixir toxicity, so perhaps it could refine the resentful soul thread as well. Sizzle, sword chi enveloped Lu Changsheng's body, nearly piercing through it. The 7 luminary sword chi inside him, like serpentine dragons, wrapped around the resentful soul thread, emitting a sound like fierce fire crackling in oil. Despite being engulfed and devoured by the 7 luminary sword chi, the resentful soul thread still stubbornly twisted and writhed. Moments later. It really works. The 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture, as an orthodox level cultivation technique, has the power to refine even a false core immortal's resentful soul thread. But this refining speed is too slow. It will take at least 2 or 3 days to refine this resentful soul thread completely. In 2 or 3 days, that false core immortal might find me. Lu Changxing opened his eyes, a trace of joy on his face. Recalling how the 2nd rank purification talisman had a suppressive effect on the resentful soul thread, he took out another 2nd rank lower grade purification talisman and activated it on himself. As the purifying force flowed through his body towards the resentful soul thread, Lu Changxing immediately began refining the gray aura with his 7 luminary sword chi. Indeed, under these conditions, his efficiency in refining the resentful soul thread doubled. By the time the effects of the purification talisman wore off, Lu Changxing had refined about 1/10 to 1/5 of the gray aura. If I had a 2nd rank supreme purification talisman to suppress this resentful soul thread, perhaps I could refine it quickly. After seeing the method's effectiveness, Lu Changxing promptly took out the talisman pens and talisman materials for 2nd rank talismans he had bought from the marketplace from his storage bag. He began to draw a 2nd rank supreme purification talisman, planning to rely on the talisman's assistance to rapidly refine the resentful soul thread. Having just been through a magical combat, not only was his mana spent, but his heart had not completely calmed yet. Therefore, Lu Changxing did not start by drawing a 2nd rank supreme talisman. Instead, he first drew a 2nd rank middle grade purification talisman to recover his touch and calm his heart. An hour later, Lu Changxing held the talisman pen and slowly outlined a 2nd rank middle grade purification talisman, infusing it with mana. The talisman paper radiated with a white light, surging forth and bringing the talisman to form. After completing this talisman, Lu Changxing did not rest. He began drawing a 2nd rank upper grade purification talisman. It took Lu Changxing about half an hour to finish drawing this 2nd rank upper grade purification talisman. Talisman making is such: the higher the grade of the talisman being drawn, the more difficult and complex it becomes, and the more time and mana it consumes. However, Lu Changxing not only possessed a maxed out talisman making skill at the 2nd rank, he also had the profound origin bead, acting as a 2nd dantian. Inside it, he stored 9 times his own mana, which kept his mana nearly inexhaustible and spared him the worry of insufficient mana. You're tuning in to the Phantom Sword Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.